Welcome to Getting Real with Josh Boyer, the show that embraces radical vulnerability and authenticity. Josh creates a judgment-free zone for his guests to share openly and candidly. Listen in as they discuss life, philosophy, passion, drive, empowerment, and purpose. Join us as we seek to leave our world better than we found it and send ripples of positive, lasting change out into the world.
There we go. The My Backstory podcast is it Steffen, or am I saying it right?
Steffen, yep, you got it.
Steffen Baldwin, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Steffen Baldwin. I'm out here in Acton, California, and I'm super excited about this because there's not much that I know about what you do with the dogs and stuff like that, and that's why I love this podcast, because like I could have hit you up with all kinds of questions beforehand, but I was like, you know what? Nah, let's do it the old school way, man. I'm gonna get to know you, and so will the guests get to know you at the same time, man.
I dig it, dude.
It's basically just me, you sharing your story, your backstory, like your upbringing, as much as you're comfortable sharing. Going into the military, what that experience was like, and then how this all started, with the dog therapy and being a trainer and stuff like that, how that all started, and kind of what you're doing in the veteran community and what your goals are, where you're heading, and I'll ask questions along the way, man.
Right on. Sounds good. Cool.
So, go ahead, brother.
Right on. Well, I guess it all started back in New Jersey. I was born 1980, so we're like, a year apart. I'm 38.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So born in 1980, and at the time, my parents were already separated. My dad was an amazing dog trainer. He trained like Sylvester Stallone's dog, Butt Kiss for Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 movies. Yeah. He did a lot of work with like animals at the Brooklyn Zoo, and he smoked a lot of crack. So at the time that I was conceived, my mom and dad were already separated. He went over on this like crack binge and basically raped my mom, if we just want to cut it to the end of the conversation. So my mom didn't want to have me. I got very close to having an abortion, didn't go through with it. I was born into that environment, and it was kind of like just hammered into me over the years growing up. Like whenever I would do something, whenever I would get in trouble, whenever mom would find me like with some pot or something, I would always go back to like, I didn't even want you here. You weren't supposed to be here. Your dad raped me. That's the only reason why you're here. So I grew up with this whole like, just self-worth issue, I guess, Was that like was she saying that maliciously, or was she saying that kind of as a lesson to you to like, no, it's
stop
very,
fucking up?
Yeah, very maliciously. Unfortunately, she's got a lot of mental health problems.
Right. My mom too.
All right. There you go.
Well, no, I used to tell people that, it's funny. The more that I share about my story, or the more that I hear other people share theirs, like, dude, mine isn't that special. You know what I mean? So like, I used to tell people like, yeah, when I was growing up, my mom used to say things like, I should have done what your dad told me to do and had an abortion with you. And it's like, that's heavy, what I mean? For a kid growing up. Yeah, for sure.
It really affects your feeling of self-worth, you know? It affects interpersonal relationships down the road. It affects everything. So I grew up in that. We were on welfare. We were actually homeless for a little while. When I was 4, we lived out of a Volkswagen Bug. And then we moved at that point from Jersey to California. So Southern California from 4 on is basically kind of where I grew up, where I went to school. It was in a really poor neighborhood. Just I wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible.
Right.
Bottom line, my mom was super abusive, like mentally, physically, emotionally. She used to hit me. I had to play I fell down, and that's why I have a black eye card at school sometimes. And it was from my mom just beating me.
Was she on crack too, or is it just?
No, she was just a lot of mental health issues, and she wouldn't get treatment. She would not get treatment, and so her bipolar disorder, her paranoia, all of her mental health issues. As she got into like her mid-30s, they say that with a lot of people that have those kind of mental health issues, particularly people that are like bipolar, for instance, they enjoy the high so much of being bipolar, and they kind of just like don't address the lows, and you can kind of deal with it until around your mid-30s, and then you kind of go off your rocker, so to speak, and that's kind of where she was at when I was growing up. Wow. I was in the middle of her going off her rocker, so no drugs or alcohol at that point. But that did become an issue later on in life when she hit like her 50s. That's when she actually started using a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol.
Wow, it's kind of late too,
Very late, yeah. She was a late bloomer with all of that. Well, her addiction was religion, ironically, or interestingly enough.
That's so funny, man.
You
it's like
too?
The parallels.
Really?
Yeah. So like, my mom went down the road of like having the drug issues and stuff like this, and like I don't think she allowed it to really affect like too much of what she was doing. You know, it's kind of like in the closet type deal.
She could still maintain and
Yeah, for sure. But she wasn't like a present mom. You know what I mean? She was more involved with her own things that like we were kind of on the back burner, especially when I was younger. So like I shared with you before the podcast, like I got attacked by a dog, German Shepherd, you know, mauled my face and whatever. And sure, I mean, that happens to other parents, you know, that have kids and maybe they just weren't watching their kid for a second. But it's like there was too many things. There was that, and then the next year drowning in a pool, the next year molested by her boyfriend. It's like there's all these things that kept happening. It's like, dude, where were you?
Right,
dude?
yeah.
You know,
At
like
a point, you gotta go, okay, my bad.
Right, for sure.
I'm not that attentive.
But like, you know, like it's helped me as a dad, like growing up, because I look at like it's like none of those things will happen to my boys on my watch. Never.
Yes. My best guide on how to be a dad was just the opposite of how I grew up. Just everything that happened, just the opposite of it.
Definitely, man. And it's funny because she, you know, went down the, you know, the road of just being completely absent, and then she found religion, and then that became like her addiction, where it was like, dude, like we could only listen to Christian music, you know, G-rated movies only, you know, like if you weren't part of Calvary Chapel, like you were going to hell.
We went to Calvary Chapel, dude. Like 3 times a week sometimes.
Oh, dude, for sure.
Then for church and for Bible study, and then for like the singles groups. Then
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we went down to San Vicente, Mexico, like every other weekend as like missionaries.
Yeah.
You know, that was part of the deal. And to be honest with you, man, like I had a lot of anger and animosity like toward religion because of the way like my mom and my stepdad were with it. It was like too gnarly. But going down to Mexico, that was like some of the best times of my life, man.
Yeah, I bet.
like as a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're doing all these adventures and
Heck
like
yeah.
cool shit. So it was really cool.
No, I dig it. Yeah.
Yeah, so-
That's interesting. Yeah, it's very parallel. Come on, go lay down, buddy. Come on, go lay down. They call Dobermans Velcro dogs. That's why he's like right next to me.
Dude,
He's
I like
always
it.
right
It's
next to
cool.
me. Yeah. So yeah, man. So I wanted to get out of that environment as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Like as quickly as I possibly could. It was when we were in a bad neighborhood. You know, we were in the projects, and then I had my abusive, you know, mom. I had to go to school and then come back home and deal with all that stuff. And so I joined the Army at 17. The first thing I did, I applied for one school, just one college, New York University, because as far as I was concerned, that was as far away from California as I can go. Right. So that was my only school, and I had really good grades in school. I had like a 4.14 GPA, so I was like, I'm gonna get in. I don't need backup schools. I'll be fine. I got in, but I didn't get the financial aid I needed. Oh yeah. And then the recruiters were hounding me, so I did pretty good ASVABs. So I was like, all right, yeah, I can do the military. It's better than staying here, and you know.
For sure.
Just living this life. Yeah. So I didn't tell my mom that I wanted to go, and I was 17 when I graduated high school, so I had to get like her permission and all that stuff. Yep. So my first thought was, I'll just let the recruiter break the news to her, which was a bad idea. So first I went Marines. And the Marine Corps recruiters knock on the door, and they're like your typical recruiters, you know, 6'3", hat all the way down to the eyebrows, just that real stern, hello ma'am, how are you? We're here to sign your son up for the U.S. Marines. And she just was not having it, so she slammed the door in their face.
Was she like, she didn't want to let you go, like out from underneath her thumb, you know, type thing?
She wanted me to go to a school, because I had a full ride to a local college, Cal State San Bernardino.
Yeah.
So if you get over a 4.0 and you live in any of the schools where there's a Cal State, I don't know if they still do it, but in the 90s, that meant you got a free ride to that Cal State.
That's pretty cool.
And I had a free ride, and I was like, no, I want to be away from my mom.
Yeah, that's funny, man. I similar story, you know, and we're only a year apart. So like I had a ride to Linfield College up in Oregon. Okay. And same thing, like it was like, we'll get you into the school. I played football, so it was like, you're gonna play football here. But the financial aid wasn't there. So it was like, you know, like, or they got me all the financial aid I needed to get in.
Like for 1 year or something?
It was for all 4 years.
Wow, okay.
But the thing is, I was gonna have to cover $4,000 a year, and like being an 18-year-old kid, I didn't have like I didn't really have parents like showing me at this time like what I needed to do. I was like, $4,000, like how am I gonna come up with that? Maybe playing football, going to school. Where am I gonna have time to work? Right. You know, hindsight being 2020, it's like $4,000, bro. You can like figure it out. Yeah. But I got scared. I was working at Chick Sporting Goods doing loss prevention in Pasadena, and all my buddies are going to college, and I'm like, oh fuck, you know, like I'm just sitting here at Chick Sporting Goods. Right. I'm just gonna be here for the rest of my life. I'm gonna be stuck in this like hellhole, you know. Like my mom at the time, I think, was like living in her car. She used to come to my work and like do really shitty things. Like she would show up and I'm like, oh, what's up? You know, like what do you need? And I was like, do you have any money? She's like, yeah, I just sucked a guy's dick for $20. Wow. And I'm like, Really? Like you think I want to hear like what? You know,
You could
like
have just said I had $20.
you know? And so I'll be like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know? And she's
Yeah.
like, you would believe that about me, wouldn't you? And I was like, you just fucking told me that. So it was
Wow,
like, it was
yeah,
this
some
constant
mind
like,
games.
like
Yeah.
mind games and
What's
shit.
the
So
truth,
like,
what isn't the truth? Yeah.
so I was getting even like more like scared about like staying like there because I was like, shit, like not only am I stuck like in kind of my hometown,
Right.
I'm stuck here with her.
Right.
And so I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here.
was
So
my
same thing.
mindset,
Yeah.
yep.
So like I was like, I didn't talk to anybody. Like at the time, like my grandma was raising me. I had lived with her for the last like up to that point, like probably the last like 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And she was amazing. Like she was like the best person in the world.
That's awesome.
And but I didn't even talk to her. Like when I joined the Air Force, like I just went to the recruiter. I told the guy straight up, I was like, listen, I'll be the easiest recruit you ever had. Like you can tell me it's gonna be the worst experience I've ever had, that I'll ever have, and I don't give a fuck. I'm still gonna join. You know, like I
Yeah.
want out of here.
That bad, nothing that. Yeah.
And it was I think I did the DEP program like in September.
Yeah.
And you know,
That's
delayed entry
early.
program.
Yeah, beginning of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. So like September, I did the DEP, and they were like, all right, cool. Your ship out date is December. I think it was December 12th or 11th.
Oh, that's right. You already graduated.
Yeah.
okay.
So I graduated in June. So in September, I was
Gotcha.
like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna do the delayed entry program, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna leave December 11th or 12th. I'm like, okay, cool. So the recruiter called and was like, hey, we can like allow you to stay, you know, through the holiday, so you can spend one last holiday at home and then go to boot camp after. I was like, nope. I am gone. You know, so like I left and
Yeah.
like so my boot camp. I spent Christmas and New Year's in boot camp. That
That's
was
funny.
quite interesting, dude.
Heck yeah.
A little culture shock, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very similar. My motivation to join was I would like to say like I wanted to serve my country and
Right.
and you know I wanted to get away from my terrible like home environment.
Dude, that's if you look at like most of us, right, that are in the military, veterans, like I would say that there's a common thread amongst all of us that have this need to explore, escape, and just get away from things. You know,
Yeah.
like when I started talking, I didn't really talk to people like in my first base in England. I didn't really talk too much about on a deeper level about like my upbringing, my life, my family. I didn't really share that too much with anybody. There's a select few guys that I did. When I got out, though, I started reconnecting with a lot of these guys that I was stationed with, and we started talking and sharing stories. And it's like, dude, to hear like the parallels, I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
we have a lot of the same shit.
It's crazy.
You know, and like
Yeah.
it's like, you know, terrible upbringings, you know,
Right.
like families that are so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So like the military was like a place for us to find that family that we were looking for, you know.
100%,
And I definitely did, you know, with a
Yeah.
lot of the guys. Like to this day, like most of my best friends are guys I was stationed with.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
is totally awesome. So
Yeah.
so anyway, so you joined the Army.
So yeah,
Oh no,
Marines
you went
were-
to the Marine
yeah.
Corps, showed
Then-
up, and they were like, no way.
recruiter, my mom was like, nope. And then at that point, then I had like a month or two to tell her, like, look, I think this is the route I want to go. And
Yeah.
and my mom and I had a really interesting like last year, 12th grade, my senior year. We kind of had this arrangement. I worked at a fast food place, and I worked at the cafeteria at lunch. And she was on welfare, of course, so expenses were low. She agreed to let me split all of the expenses. I paid half the rent, I paid half the utilities, and she just would stop being so controlling. Because it got to the point that she was like kicking me out. I spent 2 weeks like with my high school guidance counselor.
Sleeping on couches and shit.
Yeah. Stayed at my best friend's house for a while, and then she's like, all right, I'll stop kicking you out, but just pay 50-50 and we'll be roommates.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. So then at that point, I reintroduced like the military. And she was like, yeah, sure, whatever you want, you know, because we were roommates at that point.
Right.
So yeah, I left for Fort Benning within like 2.5 weeks of graduating high school.
So you decided from the time that you were going to join the Marines, you decided the Army. What was the shift?
I saw an ad or a pamphlet the recruiter had. The shift was that my mom just said hell no to the Marines. Like I didn't plan that well. So I was like, all right, well, what else could I do? And then I saw a brochure about paratroopers, and I was like, that looks dope.
I'm in.
I want to do that.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you ship off to the Army. Did you go in a guaranteed, like with a guaranteed contract, or do you go in like open general? I don't know what they call it in the Army, but
Yeah, so I mean, I picked my MOS, I picked my term of service. You know, they, of course, like all recruiters, they did a good job of lying to me. I was a 96 hotel, so it's an imagery ground station operator. Basically, my MOS was we were situated in the back of a Humvee. It had all these like computers and links to the Air Force's E-8 J-Star aircraft.
Yep.
And we would get the shots from the J-Star aircraft sent down to our vehicle, and then we also, this is, you know, back when our day, before they called them drones, they had unmanned aerial vehicles. So we would get the video footage from the UAVs and from the J-Stars, and we would basically analyze the battlefield and figure out wheel to track targets, figure out a bridge or an area they're going to slow down, and then call in the artillery. That was the job. But what the recruiter said was that I was going to fly a spy plane. And I was gonna
that's hilarious.
Take pictures and go in front of the infantry, in front of everybody else, this little like plane, and fly it around. And so I went to AIT, and they had the plane that they used to use for that job like up on display. And I was like, oh, is that what we're gonna do? And he's like, no, we stopped doing that a long time ago. Everyone was dying. Like, it's a terrible idea. We just sit in the back of a Humvee now. I was like, oh, okay. So I went to Fort Benning, and Benning was interesting because it's basically infantry basic training. Yeah. But they had one summer. I'm not sure if they do it anymore, if they ever did it after this one summer. They had one summer, and I was in it, where they had one company out of the whole battalion on Sand Hill that were non-infantry MOSs going through the first portion of infantry basic training, not the AIT portion, but the first portion. Yeah. And I remember the first day we got there, and we were all in our battalion, so we were in D Company, and so they had Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and they're going through all the drill sergeants like, what's your MOS? What's your MOS? It's like 11 Charlie, 11 Mike, 11 Bravo, all these infantry-related MOSs, right? Because that's what Sand Hill is. And they go to this one guy, and I don't know what the number was, but he was a tuba player. And he blurted out his MOS, and he's like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, tuba player, drill sergeant. And dude, I've never seen someone lose their shit so bad because they had no idea. So I really feel like they gave us an extra hard time because we weren't infantry MOSs, but it was fun. I had a blast there.
Yeah, when I showed up to boot camp, there was a guy named so I'm Josh Boyer, and they had a Josh Bauer. And so when I showed up, I go to my first flight, and they're like, sign. You're signing for all your gear, you're signing for all your blood work, whatever. And it's like, that's not me. I'm Josh Boyer, not Bauer, and that's not my social security number. Shut up, trainee. Just sign the fucking paper. Blah. So I just kept signing it because I was like, yeah, that's not me. But like, whatever. You want me to sign it? Fine. Yeah. So like 2 weeks into the deal, they were like, hey, trainee Boyer, get your ass over here. So I go and I see him, and they're like, why do you tell us that this wasn't your name? I was like, I've been telling you that for like 2 weeks. So like, they switched me with this guy, the guy who's supposed to be there, Josh Bauer. Well, what happened is when you get to boot camp, they say, who plays an instrument? I didn't play an instrument, but this dude did. Okay. So they put him in a band flight where he was supposed to be and put me in a regular flight where I was supposed to be. Well, then they switched us, and I went to a band flight. And I was like, dude, I don't play an instrument. So they have the horn holders where it's like they have people who are playing the instrument. There's guys like pretending to play it, during graduation. And then one of the guys that I was in boot camp with like got kicked out for asthma. And so I had to take over the bass drum. So during the graduation, I'm sitting there playing the bass drum. I've never played a bass drum in my life, But no, it's because you brought tuba, and I didn't think of it, dude. That's hilarious.
Funny. Yeah. So we finished up at Fort Benning. My mom actually comes into the picture again, though, in Fort Benning. So when I left, my mom was still on welfare. She went to nursing school. Yeah. And she was almost done graduating from nursing school by the time I left for the military, but not quite. She still had like a few more months. I had a job. I had a debit card, Bank of America account. I was 17. Actually, I just left my debit card with my mom. I was like, here, I know you don't have any money. Because once I left, she lost welfare benefits. So in the interim, she wasn't getting any government assistance, and she just had a few months before she finished college. Right. So she took my debit card, and she just paid all her bills for a little while, and then she flew out to see me for graduation, and I paid for that. I got into a little bit of trouble in basic training, though. So I couldn't leave. I had we had a blanket party. It happened, and so one of all the guys that got punished for it. It's funny because it was like the typical the guy from Full Metal Jacket that wouldn't shower, they wouldn't train, they wouldn't do anything. Yeah, and so a couple of us got hit for it. So when the parents came out to hang out with everyone before graduation, you're allowed to leave for the day and all that. I wasn't allowed to leave. Yeah. And so I hadn't told my mom that yet, and she comes out and was like, hey mom, I can't go anywhere, I kind of got in some trouble, I'm stuck here. And she was like, okay. She hooked up with one of my drill sergeants and left for the day. She's like, I'm gonna go get you some chicken. It's my church's chicken or something. Right. She was fucking gone all day. Like all day with this drill sergeant. He came back with this big ass cocky smile on his face, dude. Like, oh, dude. Everyone said they're gonna make bumper stickers that said, "My daddy's a drill sergeant at Fort Benning, Georgia." It's like, oh man, come on, Mom.
Dude.
And she like brought back this cold ass chicken that she bought like hours ago. She's like, oh, Drill Sergeant so and so showed me around the base. He's so nice.
He did.
Yeah, right.
Dude, that's hilarious. And he was probably so stoked on that, dude.
Yeah, he was.
This is a trainee's mom,
Right?
Like, come on, dude. Dude, have some class, bro. Jesus.
So yeah, that was that. Then I went to AIT, went to Military Intelligence School. That was Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
Okay.
So close to the border there, about 50 miles south of Tucson.
Yeah, my cousin went there.
Okay.
He's in, where's he at now? In Langley, I guess. He would be stationed at Langley, I think.
Okay.
Well, he's doing like a personal security detail. He was doing it for General Mattis and stuff like that. But I know he had to go to Huachuca.
Huachuca, yeah.
Yeah. So he was at Huachuca because that's where he went in military intelligence, and then he got on with some PSD team with Mattis, and then now he's doing the new, whoever the new Secretary of Defense is. I don't even know.
Okay, gotcha.
Acting, whatever.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
And that's all good. It's all
I
good.
just remember
Yeah.
the name. And I was like, oh shit, that's what station.
I should know that.
Yeah, for sure.
So Huachuca was fun, and that's where the airborne recruiter came by one day, and they're like, "Hey, we have 13 slots for jump school." And I was like, "Oh fuck yeah, that's what I want to do."
Yeah.
So I signed up, but I was actually the 14th person. They went by run times. I had the 14th highest run time, so right away I didn't get in actually at the get-go.
Yeah.
But we had a pretty high dropout rate because for the test you had to identify tanks, like Soviet era tanks. From the top down. It was pretty difficult testing, so we had a lot of people drop out.
Yep.
So one of the guys that was above me run times ended up failing out of the tests. He didn't pass. He left AIT, so I got bumped up. I got the lucky 13th slot.
Right.
Was able to go from Huachuca straight back to Benning again for jump school.
Did you see that old drill instructor or no?
Nope. I did not go to Sand Hill.
That's funny, dude. You know, that's the one thing, man. Hindsight being 2020. If I could do it all over again, as far as like joining the military, I would have joined the Army.
Really?
Oh, definitely.
Why?
100%. For a guy like me, like I wouldn't say, yeah, I was kind of a loose cannon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't very good at being told what to do. I didn't really particularly dig authority too much.
Yeah.
I was smart, so like there wasn't a test that they could give me that I wasn't going to pass. I was a good test taker and like whatever.
Sure,
And I was
yeah.
smarter than most of the guys that I was stationed with. You know, I'm not trying to be some fucking genius. But the thing is I got kind of with too much time on your hands and you're a smarter dude. It's like you're gonna fuck up and do really stupid shit because you're bored. You know what I mean? And that was me. So like
That's me.
being overseas. You know, I'm a young kid. I'm overseas. I got all kinds of bullshit going on at home. And I just found things to do to get myself in trouble, you know, like, I'll just fucking get on steroids and start juicing, you know what I mean? And that ended badly, you know what I mean?
Tends to, yeah.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, too much time on my hands, I'm just going to do stupid shit.
Yep.
So, like, if the reason that I would have gone to the Army is because, like, I was always the best at, like, PT. I was the strongest guy probably in our squadron. I mean, you can talk to any of the guys I was stationed with, and they'll probably agree with that. Like, I was strong, big, mean, like... I was just a dude that like just liked to get after it.
Right.
The Army would have offered me so many more opportunities to be high speed. You know what I mean? With the Air Force, with the Air Force, it's like, oh, you're a cop, but it's like, okay, you have the Raven program. You can go to pre-Ranger and then go to Ranger school potentially if you get a slot, maybe. But with the Army, it's like, dude, school after school after school. It's like, if you want to be high speed, we got all the shit you need, bro.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think if I would have been there, it would have given me more direction to kind of like take my career where I should have taken it. You know, I ended up getting medical discharge, but I think that had I not gone to the Air Force, I think things would have ended a lot differently for me as far as my military service is concerned.
That's interesting. I totally hear where you're coming from that, and it's funny because I used to say when I was in the Army that if I could go back, I would have gone into the Air Force.
Interesting.
And the reason for that is, so once I graduated airborne school, obviously I went to Bragg, A2nd, and we would go to Pope Air Force Base for lunch. And so I would have gone to the Air Force because the food was so much better.
Oh, dude, the food. Everyone talks about it. You know, fortunately, I never had to eat in a Army chow hall or Marine chow hall. And in the Air Force, you can't even call it a chow hall. It's like a dining facility.
Yeah.
It's like,
I went in there with my buddies, and they had choices of desserts.
Oh, yeah. Dude.
Like, not just here's your dessert, but what kind do you want? It's like, you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, dude.
Why didn't I go to the Air Force?
Yeah.
So for me, it was dessert. You was being more high speed.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it was cool because like it was like a bodybuilder's paradise, you know, in the Air Force because like you literally go in the chow hall or dining facility and like you could get whatever you wanted, as much as you wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They started like implementing rules where it's like you can't go up and get 7 chicken breasts. You know what I mean? Like you have to go up and get, I think it was a maximum of like 3, and then you can come back as many times as you wanted, but you couldn't go and get like a massive amount all at once.
Right.
So they
You
tried
guys had real scrambled eggs too. We had those like scrambled egg patties or something.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's funny though. You would have rather gone to the Air Force than
Just
I would
because
have
of the
gone to the
dining
Army.
options.
For sure. So what ended up happening? So you go to Bragg, and then you were assigned to the 82nd. How long were you in?
So I was in for 3.5 years, and I was only stationed in the 82nd the entire time, but I was only at the 82nd for 5 months.
Right.
So when I was in Huachuca, if I go back a few months, there was this one night where I was super drunk, and I read this article in like Military Magazine or something, and it said that the military academies kept like 100 to 200 slots a year for enlisted guys to get straight in without like a congressional nomination or anything. Just you could just apply and get straight in.
Right.
I swear to God, dude, I do not remember applying, but apparently I did.
Yeah.
Because I was in Bragg, I was doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I got an acceptance letter. And like, you've been accepted at West Point. And I was like, what? When did that happen? I don't even fucking remember applying, but I did.
Right.
And they looked at like all my SATs and everything else, and so somehow I got in. And I actually turned it down.
Oh wow.
At first, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I was talking to my platoon sergeant, and he goes, dude, I would give my left nut just to have a fucking chance to go to West Point.
Yep.
And he's like, when you go in, your enlistment contract runs concurrently as you go in. You have 2 years in the service academy before you have to make any kind of decision. He goes, just go. Just if you don't like it, you can leave. Just you're in, dude. Go. Why wouldn't you go? And I was like, all right, left nuts are pretty important. If you're gonna give that up, like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So went to USMAPS, so Military Academy Prep School.
Yep.
It's in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and that was kind of cool because like I'd already been in the A2nd. I already had like my red beret. I had my wings, and I was going in. And West Point Prep School is primarily reserved for athletes that West Point wants to recruit, but their grades just aren't quite there. So they send them to prep school to kind of get a big, heavy immersion into like math and English, and if they graduate from that, then they can go straight to the academy. And it's also reserved for prior service guys. Or gals, so they can go in and have that refresher course because they've been out of school for a while. But it was like probably I want to say about like 80% high school athletes and about 20% prior service. 2 guys that had Ranger tabs, and I was like the guy that had like the airborne. So like I was like in high school, dude. I was the little guy. The only sport I ever played was wrestling because I was little and at least was like in a weight class. So I didn't have to like worry about like getting my ass kicked. Right. But I wasn't a big dude. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I had this back ahead, my mom telling me about how I was the product of rape and I shouldn't even be. All these self-worth issues. So the prep school is cool because that was the first time I actually walked in and people were like, "Oh, dude, he's airborne. That dude's cool." Like because that's what all these high school kids like aspire
for sure.
to. It's a good feeling. So I became first sergeant there. Graduated. And then went on to the military academy. I was at the military academy for a year and a half. And then I left on my own. I did a voluntary resignation after my mom's first suicide attempt. So my mom's mental health had declined over the years. I told you I'd given her my debit card before I left for the Army. I avoided seeing her. I didn't really go home. I went to go with, like during the holidays, I go to a buddy's house. I went to Connecticut. I went to Missouri. I went to just different buddies' houses. And I was like, I don't have anything to do. So, I never really mentioned like what my home life was like. I just didn't want to go back there.
Yep.
But I still supported her financially for a while. She eventually she got her nursing degree. She started working for a little while, and she worked in ER at a county hospital, graveyard shift. So she was taking in like gunshot cases and like prison, a lot, and she couldn't handle it. Her mental health was already so fragile, and then she jumped into being a graveyard ER county hospital nurse.
One of the worst hospitals.
Yeah, exactly. In San Bernardino, which is like the armpit of Southern California.
For sure.
So yeah, it was a terrible choice for her, and it really affected her emotionally. And so she had her first suicide attempt about 3 or 4 months into my yuck year, my second year at West Point. And like the end of my first year, man, I was so stoked. I got coined at the end of my first summer for like superior cadet performance in the field, and like I was rocking it,
Yeah.
I didn't care for physics that much,
Who does?
Right. Other than that, like I was rocking it.
Yeah.
And then that hit, and all of a sudden, like, 'cause I wasn't like, I didn't join for my country. I didn't. I joined to get away from my family. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like my family was pulling me back. So I just felt this tremendous sense of obligation because my mom had alienated everybody else. I was the only one that would still keep in touch with her at any level.
Yeah.
And then she's calling me from the psych ward. It's like, fuck, what do I do?
Dude, that's so funny, man. That's so, like, our stories are, like, so similar. Dude.
That's crazy.
So
I didn't
similar.
we haven't talked about our stories.
No, we've never, and like for the people listening, like we've literally never once spoken, dude, other than like on Instagram saying, "Hey, man, you down to do a podcast?
Yeah.
I liked what you were doing." And it's funny because when I was in England, same thing. You know, my mom was tried to commit suicide or whatever, so I got a phone call, you know, from back home, like, "Hey, you know, your mom tried to kill herself, you know, this and that." So I had to take emergency leave. My brother was in Japan. I was in England. We both took emergency leave, got home. And trying to like square our way, you know, and see what we needed to do.
Right.
And the same thing as you, like when I would come home on leave, I never saw her. I didn't want to see her. I wanted nothing to do with her. And that the entire family was the same way. Like it was completely fractured. Where it was like nobody wanted to be around her or whatever. But it's like
she's still your mom.
She's still my mom. So I was trying to like reconcile whatever I could on my side of the fence, you know.
Totally.
And yeah, so yeah, she kept trying to kill herself like multiple times, and I was like, dude, is she like doing this to like get attention or like what the fuck is going on? You know?
Right.
And it would be to the point where she would go to like the psych ward, and like she would have them convinced that like they were the fucking crazy ones. You know what I mean? And it's
dude,
like, you know,
same.
It's like, dude, you're fucked up.
The
man.
third time actually, because then I got out. So the third time I visited my mom in the psych ward, if you've been to the visitation areas, I'm sure they're all the same. So it's like a big open area where people can visit with their family, but it's open. So like security, if it even needs to happen, they have like everyone there. And so my mom and I were talking on one couch, and there's this other woman talking to her family on the other couch. And her and my mom are just mean mugging each other the whole time. Like they're glaring at each other. And the other woman starts to like mumble something under her breath. And I was like, Mom, like, what's going on? My mom goes, oh, like real loud. She goes, don't worry about that bitch. She's fucking crazy. And I was like, Mom, you're in the psych ward.
Seriously, the pot calling the kettle black.
You can't be pointing fingers and saying that shit.
That's fucking funny, dude. Nah, it was kind of that was the same thing with my mom, man. She would go to the psych ward, and I think the last time she went, it was like, you know, they're coloring in their coloring books or whatever, and that's just, I'm above that and this and that. So she wouldn't ever stay there long enough to allow someone to like diagnose her situation and try and get it under control.
Get the actual help, yeah.
Right. And so she would end up just bouncing, and it was never like a 72-hour hold, or actually she may have been on a couple 72-hour holds or 5150s, but yeah, she always ended up bouncing, you know? And so it was like, dude, there was no resolution ever.
Right.
So it felt like I was kind of like going in this like wheel of like, dude, I'm trying to help you. You don't want to be helped.
Right.
So it's like, all right, what do I need to do? So like I put her in a hotel. You know, I'm paying for her hotel. Like so it was like, you're not in your car. You're like in a hotel. Cool. And so I'm giving her money, and my brother's giving her money, and we're like trying to like keep her cool. And it's like she kept asking me for money like over and over and over. I was like, dude, like you don't have any money. I'm providing it all for you. Like, but you're asking me for money like a couple days after I just given you a bunch of money. Come to find out, like she was like eating at like buffets, like sushi, all you can eat, like type shit. I'm like, you don't have any money, but yet you're going to like all you can eat sushi buffets. And then the last straw for me, like where I cut it off financially, was one of my buddies not a buddy, like an associate, let me know, like, oh yeah, dude, I've been selling your mom weed. So she was taking the money I was giving her and buying weed with it. It's like from my like people, you know. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, come on, Mom.
Seriously. So that was kind of like, that was it. And then the other thing, actually, the other straw was that when I was in boot camp, back in the day, I don't know if you remember, but like you would get your credit card statements in the mail.
Yeah.
And it would have your whole fucking account number on there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like none of it was blocked out, so you can see your whole account number. So she had my account number. She knew my social security number. She knew my mother's maiden name. So, dude, like I was in boot camp, and she was like racking up all these bills on my credit cards, dude. And so I'm like, I get to England, and I go to open like one of those. It's like a Star card. I don't know if they have it in the army and stuff like that, but it's like a credit card you can use at the exchange.
Okay.
And so I go to open that, and they're like, oh, no, you know, you got, like, all this shit on your credit. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't have any credit, you know?
Right.
I had 3 credit cards that I'd opened. So what I would do, I would buy a stereo for my car, and then I would pay it off. Or I'd buy
build some credit.
So I'd buy, like, a ring at a jewelry store, and then I'd pay it off, like, trying to build my credit. And, yeah, dude, so she had racked up all these, credit cards, and I'm like, oh. So they had the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act of whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
So I went to the financial lady, and she's like, listen, like you can press charges for like, you know, for fraud and like using like your credit cards, or we can just do the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act because it happened like kind of when you're in transition of coming in the military and like it's wartime and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I was able to wipe out like all of the because there was all these late payments and over limit payment. I didn't even know that it was even happening.
Right.
Because I was, I'm not using those credit cards. There's zero balance on them. I don't even need to look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was before like I was
Damn.
fucking 18. Yeah,
Sure,
18 years old. So it's like I didn't know any better, you know. And I looked at the statements and I was like, holy shit. Because all the statements were going to my grandma's, so I never was even seeing them. I hadn't even forwarded my address to England yet, you know.
Wow, yeah.
So I didn't even know what was happening, and so I called her on it, and she was just like, "Nah, that wasn't me." So I called the credit card company. I was like, "Hey, what's up with these credit cards? Like, who's using them?" They're like, "Yeah, there's an AOL account, Kimberly Boyer, you know, Kimberly Boy," and then like the passcode was like Josh Chad Victoria, and I'm Josh, my brother's Chad, and my sister's Victoria. I'm like, yeah, it's not you.
Yeah, right.
Just another Kimberly Boy out there that has 3 kids with the same name.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
That's nuts. Dude,
So-
I don't get parents that lie to their kids. I'm like painfully honest with my son now because of that. Yeah.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
That like I think you're absolutely right, dude. Like you said, like you saw what you didn't want to be as a parent, and so that's what helps you be a better parent. And
Yeah,
same thing with
that's my
with my
blueprint.
kids. It's
Totally.
like I still fail as a dad. I mean, come on, let's be
all the time.
honest.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally.
Like I fail all the time, and it's funny because like I have a 12-year-old, and for my first marriage, and so he'll leave. Like he's with me half the time, and then he'll go to his mom's.
Sure.
And every time he leaves, I critique myself.
Right.
Every time. Like,
Yeah, totally.
how did I talk to him? Did I spend enough time with him?
Right.
Did I? Because like he's one of those kids where like he'll go in his room and he'll just chill in there. He's not mad. He's not angry. He's not depressed.
thing,
He's just
yeah.
doing his own thing. And I give him his space or whatever. I'm like, well, dude, should I have let him? Like, am I allowing him to just be like in his room too much? Should I like
force him
Should I
family
force him to
time?
come
Yeah.
like out and spend time with me? It's like I want him to be happy and like content and like whatever. So I'm always critiquing it, dude,
yeah.
because I never want for him to get to the place that I am as a 37-year-old dude and being like, my dad was an asshole.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Whatever. And if I am, I hope he would be like, you know, have it in him, you know, to come to me and say, hey man, like you hurt me by saying, and he's done that where I've lost my temper or whatever. And he's like, dude, you're mad at me. It's not even my fault. Dude, you're yelling at me and I had nothing to do with it. And I'm still pissed off or whatever. And then it'll take me about 5 minutes. I'll calm down. And then I'm like, you know what, dude? You're 100% right, man.
Yeah.
I should have never come at you like that, dude. Like, it wasn't your fault.
That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
I admit my faults to my son all the time. If I get upset and he calls me out on it, if he's right, he's right. It's
Yeah, for sure.
And the same thing. I'm obviously divorced too, so my ex-wife is in Ohio. He goes back and forth. He's here for the summer now.
Yeah.
And he says that's one of the big differences is like, you know, and my ex-wife is a great mom. She's an amazing mom.
That's awesome.
But one of the differences he has is kind of like I'm the parent, you're the child role. And I guess that is factual, but he's also a little human being.
Right.
He's not just a child. He's a little human being. He's going to be an adult one day, and these interactions, he's going to remember how they played out. So I don't just play I'm the dad, so that's the way it is because I said so. It's like, let's have a conversation.
For sure.
If I get mad at him and I blow up and I yell, then we sit and have a conversation. Okay, so what happened? Why did it happen? You know, do you understand what upset me in the first place?
Yep.
And then he usually does what most kids do. I'm sorry, I was being a jerk. I won't do it. And I'm like, no, dude, I need original thought. I need you not to just go, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I was wrong. Actually have a conversation with me, dude. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me you think I'm wrong and back it up. And then we actually have this conversation at the end. So.
He'll never, ever forget those conversations either. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I know that for Brendan, my 12-year-old, he's I think he's thankful for the fact that we have that kind of open dialogue,
Definitely.
you know. And there's a lot of things that goes on in his mom's house that doesn't go on in our house, you know, whatever. Like for example, like my wife and I don't drink, you know, so it's like there's stability, you know what I mean? Sure. And I'm not knocking like the other side. I'm just saying that like with us, it's like he doesn't have to worry about like how's he gonna get home, who's gonna be drunk, who's not, who's this, none of that shit like matters to him in our house, you know what I mean? Because like when he's with us, it's like you're secure, dog. Like nothing will happen to you on my watch. I promise you, you know? And I think that part of that is like, you know, like similar to your upbringing, my upbringing was so like unstable and unsecure, you know what I mean? I have this like, you know, this insecurity thing where it's like, dude, like security is huge to me, you know, like huge. And it's because I never felt secure. So of course, like security is huge, you know, it's like
so much,
doors are locked, things are good. And it's like, and I always want to make sure that I'm in control of like whatever situation, you know, that, that I'm in. But
and you can take care of the people that rely on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure, man. It's heavy. So when you left West Point, when you resigned, was that your time like out of the military? Like you were done?
Yeah. So I was done at that point. And I went on inactive reserve like everybody else.
Yeah.
but the timeline is really important because I've struggled with this over the years. I got out 12/21/01. So I was in West Point when the towers were hit. I was an hour away.
Yeah.
I was a sophomore. I was an hour away. And at that time, our last recollection of combat was Desert Storm.
Yep.
We marched in, we fucking kicked ass, and we marched out.
Totally.
It was, a few months, basically. So I remember all the firsties at that point. This is September. So, end of September, all the firsties walking around. They're like, yeah, we're going to go overseas. We're going to fucking
whoop that ass.
Yeah. And they're like, you guys aren't even going to see combat. And that was a realistic expectation at that time. We've been in war so long, we forget that before that, it didn't last this long.
Right.
And no one at that time thought that it would. So as I left as a sophomore. My graduating class would have been the graduating class of 04. And that's, as far as I know to date, the highest casualty class out of the entire West Point history.
Wow.
And when I was at the prep school, there was a couple of buddies of mine that, they were high school football players. They were just good dudes. They didn't know right face from left face, though, and I had my beret on, so, they all looked up to me.
Yeah.
So I helped a few of those dudes, learn how to march in formation and how to clean their rifles and how to do all these things. And then I left. I went home to Southern California. I bought a 65 Dodge Dart convertible. And, I had to deal with my crazy mom, but I was also at the beach, and, I was having fun. And I had no idea that 2.5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, this would still be going on, and it would be so much heavier at that point. The invasion of Fallujah was, 03?
I don't think anybody anticipated it being as long as it was, man. Nobody.
Did. Yeah. Especially back in 01, and a month or two after it happened. So I left 12/21/01. That's just, it's been hard for me to reconcile the feelings. When people say, all veterans stand up, there's times where I don't want to stand up. I'm like, I didn't do anything. Right. These guys did, and I helped these guys learn how to be soldiers because I was the airborne dude. Yeah. I was the one they looked up to. Then they went off and they died. Yeah. And I was off in SoCal with my 65 Dodge Dart, so it's really hard to reconcile that. And
that's funny you mentioned that, man, because I think a lot of veterans deal with that. I think it's a good topic to talk about because you have, I have buddies that I was stationed with that went downrange and they didn't die. They didn't get anything, no arms or legs blown off. They came back in one piece. But they still have this weird feeling of when people tell them Happy Veterans Day, they cringe. It's dude, I'm not missing an arm, I'm not missing a leg. Right. And I dealt with that a lot, man, because I got medically discharged, and so I never went downrange. I was supposed to go to Qatar because I was in before 9/11. Okay. And then I was in England when 9/11 happened. I was stationed over there, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And so I was excited, man. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. We're going down range. We're going to fuck people up. And I was excited. And Macy, hey. No. No barking. That's what's cool about this podcast because we can do the podcast and we're doing it at a dog sanctuary. So dogs going to be barking in the background. It's totally cool. Word. It just sucks when it's my dog.
Yeah, there's 45 here and yours is the one barking.
Yeah, right? The rest of them all quiet. But anyway, I always had this weird thing because I didn't go downrange and whatever. So I had the same thing. People would say Happy Veterans Day. I'm like, dude, I'm not really, I don't deserve that. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And since I've gotten older, I've really started to understand that hey, you deal the cards you're dealt. Right. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I volunteered. I volunteered to go and serve my country. Right. I don't think it really even matters. It wasn't this patriotic. It was before 9/11, so at that time things weren't as patriotic as they were after. Yeah. And the truth be told, just like you, I didn't join because I was some patriotic dude that wanted to go kick ass for America. It was because I want to get the fuck away from my family. That's the truth, you know? Yeah. But the truth is also, had I not been medically discharged, had things been a little bit different for me, I would have gone down range gladly. Right, sure. I would have gone down range with my brothers in a heartbeat. No doubt. It just didn't work out like that for me, and it is what it is. So I totally get where you're coming from, man. Totally.
So yeah, it's interesting, and so for a while I wouldn't even talk about being a veteran, I definitely wouldn't talk about going to West Point because I didn't graduate, right. But I did. I had great grades. I got coined for superior field performance, Yeah. I wasn't some piece of shit that just couldn't hack it. Yeah. My mom tried to kill herself. I had no idea this thing was still going to keep going, and so I thought, taking care of my mom was a bigger priority. Right. And interestingly enough, my mom and I haven't spoken since 2008, so we'll get to that. But all of that effort for nothing.
For what?
So I got out, and at that point, that was December 2001. I thought I was going to go and become a bartender and finish up school at UCLA. That was the plan. Sounded pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so I went to bartending school, and then I applied to all these jobs and realized no one gives a fuck about bartending school.
Nobody. Yeah, for sure. And I didn't know that either. My cousin was a manager at a restaurant, or is a manager at a restaurant. And I asked him, I was like, hey, man, should I go to bartending school? Because I thought it was, I have the
Something to
tattoos
do,
for it.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's like, I think I would, you make good money and like, it's all good. Go work in Hollywood, Saddle Ranch or whatever.
Yep.
And make a shit ton of money. I was like, man, should I do it? And he started laughing, and he's like, bro, no one gives a fuck about bartending school. And I was like, really? He's like, you really, dude.
Become a bar back, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I didn't know that. So I went to bartending school, applied a bunch of jobs, didn't get hired. I was looking at the paper, and down the road there was a used Pontiac Buick GMC dealership.
Yeah.
And they were hiring for car salesmen. So I was like, oh, fuck, I guess I'll just do that. I gotta make some money.
Yeah,
I'll
for
just do that
sure.
for now. So I went in there, and Charles was the GM. He's like, what do you know about selling cars? I was like, I know nothing. I've been out of the Army for like 2 months. I just went to bartending school. I can't get hired as a bartender. I don't know how to sell cars. He's like, well, what did you learn in the Army? I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty good at doing push-ups. He's like, all right, knock out 50 push-ups. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So I hop down, knock out 50 push-ups, hop up. He's like, all right, you're hired. That was my first.
That was your interview.
So my interview was like, I can't do anything but push-ups. He's like, all right, do it.
I'm going to turn the air off just so it stops kicking. Sure.
I can hit it real quick. And do you want him out of there if he's in the way bowling?
No,
Okay,
good.
all right,
It's
okay.
all part of the
Cool.
part of the show. Dude.
Okay.
It's actually perfect. It's this one, right?
Yeah, buttons on the bottom right there. There you go.
Probably get a little hot, dude. But
That's all right.
for the sound.
We'll suck it up.
So the used car salesman, dude. That's
Yeah,
fucking
that was my in, and then I eventually found my way into nonprofit work. I was doing the used cars thing for a little while. I sold life insurance for a little while. Just did a few sales jobs. Did construction work for a little while. None of it was really panning out. And then I was actually getting a tattoo at a shop where I knew the owners. And there's this other girl there who knew the owners. And we started talking back and forth. And she was, go on, buddy, go down. She was the manager for a homeless shelter, basically.
Yeah.
It was a homeless resource center for people who had mental illnesses and substance abuse problems. And she said a ton of the homeless were veterans. And I was like, cool. Like, I'll if you want to hire me, I was like, I'll go work there. So that was my first like kind of foray into like nonprofit work, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I loved giving back. I loved doing something. A lot of the homeless guys were veterans. Some of them weren't, but they all needed something, and I could go in and I could just like help them every day.
Yep.
And so for the first time, I was like, I'm really doing something that matters, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were a homeless resource center, not a shelter, so there was no beds. If you wanted a bed, you had to go down to the Salvation Army, which was like 5 miles away. And it was typically reserved for women and children first, and then men just kind of got the leftovers, you know, as it should be if you're homeless.
Yeah.
The women and children need the shelter the most. So there was a couple of dudes, and they were like, oh, man, like we never make it there in time. You know, we're just going to go sleep on the streets. And I had my 65 Dodge Dart. And I was like, you guys want to ride my car? And so it was a convertible. So I popped the top, had a little power convertible button, to hit the button, zzz, goes back.
Dude, they're probably so stoked.
Oh, they were so stoked. I wish there was like, this was 2003. So cell phones existed, but no one was taking pictures with them really. Like we were still just calling and texting. There was no selfie camera. Right. I wish I had a picture because I would go and drive these guys to the Salvation Army at the end of the day, and big old beards just flying in the wind, and big old grins on their face, homeless
awesome.
dudes. And like I put the top down because it looked cool, but also they smelled terrible.
So it's like, yeah.
You know, it was practical, and they had
Mutually
fun.
beneficial.
Yeah. But I did that for a while. Really loved it. And then I got into grant writing. The shelter that I was running needed some grant money. I started writing some grants. Got them approved. I'm pretty quick with, quick on my feet. I didn't have to be trained a whole lot. So I just kind of fell into it. They hired me as the grant writer for the whole company. That segued into me basically running a hospital foundation. Yeah. There was a hospital foundation up in the desert that was looking for someone who had grant writing experience. They hired me there. That's when I got married. I had my son, and it sounds great on paper. We bought our first home. All the stuff that, I should have been checking off. I'm like, okay, I came from an unstable home. This is what I need to get married. I need to have the baby, have the job, get the house, white picket fence, all that shit. And I was miserable, and my wife was miserable, and we were fighting all the time. It was really bad. I was just so wrapped up in work, and at that point, the hospital foundation work, it wasn't like running the shelter. When I was running the shelter, I was there out in the field with these homeless dudes and gals, helping them out, like hands on, like making a difference. When I was doing the hospital fundraising, I was putting on a suit and tie and just kissing doctors' asses and trying to get big checks for the hospital and going to these big fancy galas with a suit and tie, and it was like. We're raising money for good stuff, but I didn't feel like I was doing anything that really mattered like I did at the homeless shelter. Yeah. So I wasn't happy. I didn't feel like I was doing what I needed to be doing. And then my wife and I, and now ex-wife, we got into this massive fight. And there was a moment in that fight where I thought, God, you know what? She's always nicer when we're back in Ohio when we visit her family. She's from like the Dayton area. She's always nicer. We always get along better. Maybe that's what's missing. Maybe we just need to be in Ohio. Forget counseling. Forget like talking about why we're fighting. Let's not delve into the issues. Let's just move.
Yeah. Solutions, bro.
Solutions. Right. Let's not address why we're fighting. Let's just change the location.
Yeah.
So we did that, and obviously didn't work out. But that was when I got my first job running an animal shelter. So I was looking for jobs in California. While I was in California, in Ohio, I was applying, over the phone and stuff. And I, at this point, had reunited with my dad. So my mom raised me. My dad took off after, he raped my mom. He popped back into my life in my early 20s. That's actually when I connected with him.
Oh, wow.
So I had a private investigator find his number. He has his training facility in Pasadena. So my dad's been training, it's called Obedience Please Dog Training. And turns out that that's where he's been all this time. My mom just kind of kept all that information away from me and didn't want me to know anybody else in my family.
Wow.
Because I'm actually the youngest of 8, but I grew up thinking pretty much that I was an only child.
So he had 7 other kids?
He had 3 other wives, and he had a system. 2 kids, married, 2 kids, divorce, leave, no child support. Married, 2 kids, divorce. So if anything, he was consistent. But yeah, marriage, 2 kids, and then divorce and leave. So I was number 8. I had an older brother. And we lived together until I was 9. Then my mom actually kicked him out to go live with my dad, and I just kind of didn't really know what was happening. He just left.
Yeah.
And so I reunited with my brother, who actually joined the Navy. When I left for the Army, we were separate. I hadn't seen my brother in fucking 8-9 years. Yeah. And I ended up leaving for the Army. He ended up leaving for the Navy all on his own. So we served in the military at the same time. We got out around the same time. Hired a private investigator, found my dad, found my brother, my full brother. Then from there, connected with my 6 half-siblings. All of their kids, huge reunion. It was massive. It was actually kind of overwhelming. It was like a little too much for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was part of the reason why I was like, Ohio's fine. Like, you guys there's a lot of you. And I'm not comfortable with that. And my ex-wife doesn't like here anyways. Let's just go there. So my dad's dog trainer, I had the nonprofit experience. They were hiring for a shelter director. So I kind of played up my experience with my dad. I was like, oh yeah, my dad's trainer. I didn't freaking know the guy until like 2 years earlier, but kind of.
Yeah.
And I did. I worked with him for 2 years at his facility, but it was just 2 years. It wasn't like a lifetime of it. But because of my fundraising experience and because of boy, go lay down, buddy. Go on, go lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Thank you. Bullwinkle, lay down. All right, on the couch is fine. So because of that, they gave me my first job running a shelter. So that was like 2008 was my first chance actually working at an animal shelter. It was a private humane society. I did that until my divorce in 2011, separation/divorce. Yeah. And then at that time I took on another job at the Humane Society. I was the shelter director, which I loved that. I loved that so much. But they're also hiring for an animal cruelty investigator. And that only pays $25 a month in Ohio. So in Ohio,
$25 a month?
A month, yeah.
Holy shit!
It's the state minimum pay. They haven't changed it since like 1951. So in Ohio has 88 counties. Right. It's a small state, a ton of counties. Yeah. So there's a few urban counties that have bigger budgets, and they could do more than the state minimum pay. There's a lot of very, very small slivers of counties with tiny budgets and just tiny municipalities. So they could never pay more than the state minimum. So the reality is in Ohio, there's a big lack of enforcement when it comes to animal cruelty. So I taken on this job as a humane officer because nobody else wanted the $300 a year paycheck. And instead of going to the bar, because after my divorce, I started drinking real heavy. Yeah. Real heavy. Blackout heavy. And because I just felt like the biggest failure after my divorce. I moved to Ohio because I thought it would keep my marriage together. And growing up in a fractured home, keeping my initial marriage together, keeping that nucleus tight was the most important thing. That was my definition of success for me.
What do you think ended it? Like, what was the catalyst?
My ex-wife started hitting me in front of my son. Same thing my mom used to do, actually.
Straight trigger, dude.
Yep, and she knew it. That was the thing. Like she would do what she had to do to get the response from me that she wanted, and she knew that my mom was physically abusive. So the last night I was in the house, she hit me so hard that I spun around. And she's a little girl too. She's not big. Yeah. And I spun around, and our son had snuck out of the bedroom. He was 3, and he was hiding under the kitchen table, and he was crying, and he was watching us fight. And I looked at her. I was like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
That was it. I didn't walk back.
Yeah, that's funny that happened with, and same thing with my first marriage.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude.
A lot of alcohol involved, and on both sides. I was drinking a lot too. She was drinking a lot. But it seemed like every time we would have like a family like party or whatever, somebody would be fighting, and it would just be all crazy or whatever. And then it started like escalating. It started taking like steps into like a certain whatever. And
the moment when that line's crossed.
Yeah, so we got to a couple times where she would get hammered and then like decide that it was a great idea to like punch me in my face. And it's like,
because you knew you didn't do anything back.
Right, exactly. Right. So it's like, listen, like, and I got to the point like toward the end where I was like, one of these days, like, I'm probably gonna hit you back. Like, I'm getting tired of getting punched in the face, and I keep telling you like, it's not cool. And like, same thing. She's like 5'1" or whatever, and I was a bigger dude. She wasn't big at all, but like, you know, she's has rings on and you get punched in the eye, and like, it's like, dude, it hurts
emotionally too. It's still your wife. You're fighting
it. Stop punching me, dude. And I get it, dude. Like, I'm not in any way trying to like create like a war on that side. It's more like that's the facts, man. That's just kind of what was going down, and
just like you, I was not innocent by any means.
Yeah.
I put my hands on her, but get in her face, go, well, you just fucking punch me then. You know, like I was asking for it, you know. So I can definitely equal guilt on both sides, but that was the catalyst for me.
Yeah, I mean that for me that would have been it. I mean, that unfortunately wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back for my marriage. That was one of many things, but that was definitely like one of those things where I was like, dude, like, what the fuck, man?
Right.
Is this what we've come to? You know
is this
like,
gonna be our life?
Yeah, where I'm fucking getting punched in the face with my old lady.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's
weird. It was weird, yeah.
You know, here I am, like, this guy grew up fighting, you know what I mean? And here I am getting fucking getting mad by my wife. Shit.
It's not funny, but it's funny that we
have
that.
I could laugh at it now, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
I can laugh at it and be like, hey, you know, it is what it is, dude. I mean, my life is abundantly better now.
Of course,
You know, and my wife now, there's no way I could ever. I mean, if I really did, I would have to do something completely brutal and totally unsat for her to ever even consider punching me in my face. And she told me when we got together, because I told her that was like a trigger for me. Like, I don't need any drunk. Like, don't punch me. I don't like that kind of shit. You know. And she's like, if I ever punch you, like, I would expect you to punch me back. I was like, well, I'm not going to, but I appreciate you telling me that.
Can we get that in writing?
Right. I was always scared, you know. I was always like, dude, like, when we would get to that point, you know, it's like, dude, I'm getting punched. I'm like, man, if I hit you back right now, I'm probably gonna kill you. Like, I'm gonna hit you so hard because I'm so mad. Yeah. And it's just not gonna end well, you know. So it's better to just be done.
We'll talk about the dogs eventually, but it's similar. We have a lot of big dogs, small dog, large dog incidents. Where the small dog would go and provoke the large dog. Yeah. And just be in their face, yep. And the big dog finally has enough of it and turns back around, and it's, what is it? Pit bull attacks Chihuahua. Yeah. It's not like,
the aggressor always gets blamed.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Or the retaliator always gets
blamed. If they're bigger and exactly. Yeah. An interesting parallel there.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was, for me, that was it. And then I just felt like I failed, dude, because I left California. Yeah. You know, I left my the rest of my family, my dad. My mom couldn't handle me moving. She said I was abandoning her. I said, Mom, I'm 30 years old. Yeah. I gotta go. Like, I already left the army for you and came back. Like, I'm gonna lose my marriage. I gotta try this. And so then she broke off all contact with me. I haven't spoken to her since I moved to Ohio.
Wow.
I sent her letters. I sent her pictures of our grandson. I've come back to try and see her. Her house was foreclosed on. She lost her nursing license. I had her skip tracer. Like, there's no data on her. I have her name plus obituary in Google Alerts. I have, like, I've been looking. Every once in a while, I'll even pay those stupid websites that claim to find people, and I get the same information that I've already had before.
So you want to find her?
I want closure. Yeah. Like, if she killed herself, I just want to know. If she's doing better, I want to know.
So you have no clue where she is at this point?
No clue.
Wow.
No clue.
Wow.
Yeah.
I might know a guy.
Okay.
Like, seriously.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
And I'll hit him up after this podcast.
I have a lot of information. I have a lot of, like, all of her last known addresses,
Yeah.
obviously name, birthday, I have her social security number. I have everything, but then she ghosted.
You know what's funny is I think I'm almost 100% positive the guy that I know lives in Acton.
Really?
I'm pretty
That's
sure.
Crazy.
And retired law enforcement,
Okay.
stuff like that. And he's like a magician.
Interesting.
So I'll call him after
That'd be
this.
cool,
too.
yeah.
Definitely. That'd be so cool if we can make that happen
would
and then
be.
you find her, you know. I mean,
Dude, I got so close one time. Well, I thought I got so close.
Right.
I found someone with her name, first name, last name, middle initial, or first name, middle initial, last name. So Barbara J. And she never. My last name is Baldwin because that's her maiden name.
Yeah.
She never changed her last name from my dad's last name, which was Finkelstein, which I had during basic training. I had 2 Puerto Rican drill sergeants trying to pronounce Finkelstein, and it was just more like Fuckstain and like all that other shit. It was never Finkelstein. It was everything but that.
Right.
So she still has like that last name. And so I found a woman who matched those records that lived in New Jersey, like an hour away from where we used to live in New Jersey years ago. Got her number, got her address, and then actually I kind of chickened out on calling her because like, oh my god, I think that's my mom. And so my ex-wife and I, we've been divorced for a while. We're on good terms now. And I told her what was going on. She's like, you want me to call? And I was like, yeah, sure. So my ex-wife called, and she's like, the lady answered. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm not his mom. Like, I wish I was, because you can tell he's been looking for her for a while. But yeah, I got really close one time, and then that was as close as I've gotten. So
Yeah, let me see if, like I said, this guy's a magician, so he may be able, if you have a lot of
I did
information,
a lot, yeah.
I'll call him when we're done here and then put
That'd
you
be
in
cool.
contact with him.
Thank you.
And
Thank
then
you.
we can see if we can, and hopefully we can do a part 2 of this podcast if you
That'd
do
be
find
cool,
her.
yeah. The biggest thing for me has been closure. I just want to know, like I said, if she's good and she doesn't want to talk to me, that's fine. Like,
Right.
if she doesn't want to have a relationship with me, that's fine.
You'd be totally cool with that?
Yeah, I want to know where she's at. I want to know if she's safe or not, you know?
Right.
If she's not safe and I can help her, I want to help her still. If she's dead, I just want to know.
It's funny, we talked about it before the podcast, you know, and he gave me this book, Your Inner Child of the Past, and I'm definitely going to be reading this book for sure.
That's a good one, dude.
But we all deal with shit differently, right? So it's like, for you, I think people could hear your story and be like, fuck, I would never want to talk to her again. I would never want to see her. I would never want to talk to her. Fuck her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's what a lot of people would probably say.
Right.
But it's like, no, that's still your mom, and you have a different relationship, and you have a different... You still want to know that she's cool.
Exactly.
Because
She's
it's
still family,
blood and
Right.
whatever, you know, different strokes for different folks. Like, for me, like, I know where my mama is, and I know... I just choose... It's safer for me to keep a distance.
And if I knew where she was, I might have the same parameters.
Right.
It's just the not knowing part that drives me nuts.
Yeah, my wife has really tremendously helped me with boundaries, you know, like setting up boundaries, because I never had any before.
Right.
Because, like, for me, I was always like the people pleaser. I always wanted people to be happy and things to be cool. And I would have these things where I'm like, you know, fuck, I'm tired of your shit, you know, and then I would just like 86 people out of my life, like, because it's not healthy. And then I would feel bad about it. Be like, oh, dude, I feel bad, you know. Let's try and work this out. So my wife's like, do you understand the cycle here? Like, you're going to keep doing this because...
You're enabling people.
You're enabling them to treat you like shit.
Right.
And you teach people how to treat you.
Yep.
And so if you're allowing it, they're just going to keep treating you like shit. And then they know that you're going to come back. So, like, there's a lot of people in my life now that still to this day will reach out to me and try and probe me to get a response or a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And they get nothing. They get like zero response. And I'll ask my wife, I'm like, why do they keep hitting me up? Like, why do they still try? Like, after all this damage has been done, like, why? And she's like, this is what you taught them.
Right.
That you're always going to come back around. That it's just a phase you're going through.
And now it's not working, so it's confusing, so just keep trying.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to keep trying. So you just got to set those boundaries. So, like, it's been...
Totally.
It's felt like so healing to just be like, dude, sever ties and just be like, listen, like, these are the boundaries.
Yeah.
They're not going to be crossed. Like, my family, my immediate family is what's important to me, you know, and protecting that. Yeah, definitely. Totally. So then you got into the working the dogs, and then you found your dad. Did your dad work for you? Like, when you told him that your dad was a trainer, did he come and work for you or no?
No, he stayed in California. He's got his own business. He makes good money. He trains a lot of, like, Hollywood stuff.
Are you guys in contact now?
Yeah, we have a good relationship. Yeah, we're I would say we're more friends than anything else. We don't have like a father-son relationship. Like one time he tried to call me and I was busy. Then he texted me and I was busy. And he texted me again. He's like, hey, I'm something about like, don't blow me off or something. And I was like, you blew me off for 22 years though. So I can kind of do what I want. I was like, LOL. Because that makes it okay. Right. So I have like a little bit of like every once in a while he tries to like pull the dad card. I'm like, you weren't my dad. I met you as an adult. You can't pull that card. But
that's funny, dude.
Yeah.
My pops is around. He's in Palm Springs, and I don't wish the guy like any ill will at all. We're actually we're on the friend tip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where it's like we're. I'm not mad. I'm not angry.
Right.
None of that. It's just like
what it is.
I accept that it is what it is. Like he wasn't around like much when I was a kid, and part of that was my mom was orchestrating a lot of things, and I understand that part of it too. But like he still has some culpability, and I don't want him to like kind of just be like, oh well, your mom, whatever. It's like no, you don't get an easy
you
out,
get a free
bro.
pass.
Like you don't get a free pass.
Mom was also messed up. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's you have some culpability, bud, and you need to like kind of own it, And so, but I found like even it's funny like as an adult, like we're still seeking this like, or at least I was like seeking like for my dad to be proud of me.
Yes.
To be like, dude, like I'm proud of you. You never needed me. He's never given me a dime. You know what I mean? I've never asked him for shit, and I never would. And then doing all the things that I was doing, I was like, man, like it'd be kind of cool for him to just be like, I'm proud of you, man. You never needed me, and like you figured it all out on your own.
Totally.
And finally, like I think it was about 6 months ago, dude. He was at my house and we were walking out, and he was like, "Man, you have a really nice house," and blah blah blah. And he's like, "I'm proud of you." And I was like, cool. Like cool, man.
Yeah.
So to this day, we're still like, we're on a friend. Like, we talk when we talk.
Yeah.
We don't spend holidays together. I mean, we may do a Christmas together, maybe not.
Maybe not on Christmas, but
right,
around that time and have dinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
But and it's not. I think it's just better that way because I think like I grew up for so long without him.
Right.
He grew up so long without me.
Yep.
Like he has a wife and she has kids. They don't have kids together, but that's his family, and that's what he's been around, and I respect that. It's all good. And we just do our own thing. It's funny because I met my dad. I mean, I knew my dad as a kid, like off and on.
Right. And
then I had a brother, my oldest brother, that I didn't meet till I was 19. I always knew about him, but I had never met him. And it's funny because like I don't speak to my full brother, like we don't talk at all, but my brother that is my half brother that I met when I was 19, like we're tight as fuck.
That's awesome.
And it's funny because we look alike, we laugh alike, we talk alike. That's like there's so many similarities, and we didn't even grow up with each other.
Nature nurture, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, dude. It's a trip.
It is.
So you went from working in the dog, was it dog rescue?
It was an animal shelter, so it was like a county humane society.
Right.
Yeah, so they took in like basically all of the owner surrenders and the strays and abuse cases, and that was kind of where I like latched onto what I'm doing now. Was when I got divorced, I started drinking like crazy.
Yeah.
Just so much whiskey, dude.
Yep.
So much fucking whiskey, and I knew I was like it just wasn't good for me, and I knew that we also as the director I had to fill a position at work. This other job, and no one wanted it, so I was like, I'm gonna do that, and on the evenings when I'm done being the director doing admin stuff, I'll just hit the field, put my boots on, go out in the field, just do like hands-on animal cruelty investigation work. Yeah. And that was great for me. I was able to do that. Got commissioned, and it's funny, in Ohio they have you go through 2.5 days of training. 2 days actually of training. They've changed it, but when I went through, they make you watch this video, and it's an old ass video, and then on the first day, second day, on the morning of the third day, they give you the test, and they give you all the questions and all the answers. And they're like, just let us know when you're done reading all the, just memorize. Okay, got it. Take the test. Here you go. You now have full police powers to enforce Title VII of the Ohio Revised Code, which is the agricultural title. So yeah, you get full police powers, and it's interesting because it is a public law enforcement position.
Yeah.
But they have given in the law that authority to a private, nonprofit county humane society. Yeah. So it's a really interesting way to kind of like balance public and private rather, because I was sworn in by a judge, but then I was reporting to the board of directors of a private county humane society, doing my job of public law enforcement.
So if you're making $300 a year or whatever doing it, do you get county benefits?
No county benefits either.
Fuck.
Yep. no cost of living adjustments, no COLA, nothing.
So this purely has to be out of the kindness of your heart that you're doing it, man.
And in Ohio, there was just no money for it. I needed something that mattered too. I felt like such a failure. My marriage was down. Like I was working at the shelter, and that was important. Like it's always been the hands-on stuff. Like when I ran the homeless shelter, I was there actually helping homeless people, like hands-on. When I was doing the fundraising, I was doing it at a higher level, and I didn't feel as fulfilled. And then I went back and worked at the shelter, and I was doing admin stuff. I didn't feel as fulfilled. I put my boots on, and I went out and actually knocked on doors and like took dogs off of chains and shit. All of a sudden, that sense of fulfillment came back, and I got hooked on it. And I loved it so much that pay didn't matter. It didn't matter so much that I decided I was going to quit my job as the director and start my own nonprofit. Just focusing on this big issue of a lack of enforcement in rural Ohio. So I call it the Animal Cruelty Task Force of Ohio. And I was able to get this, there's this legal loophole that allowed me to actually set up my nonprofit as a second county humane society in my county. And there's this big loophole legal decision that happened years ago where some judge allowed it in one county 20 years ago. And it was like the Clinton trials or the Clinton, when he was on the stand, it all came down to one word. The definition of the word A. So in the Ohio Revised Code, it says that a county humane society may be formed to prevent the cruelty of animals. And so my county humane society, where I was the director, when I got really hardcore about like taking in dogs and like actually and horses and everything else, they got really nervous. The reason why they got nervous is there's a big divide usually between the agricultural community and the animal welfare community. It's usually you're on one side or the other, and you have this like. And I don't eat much meat. I consider myself a flexitarian. I eat how I feel like eating, which is mostly a plant-based diet. This is my preference.
I like it, yeah.
But if I feel like eating something else, I will. But in the animal welfare community, there are these people that are much more extreme, and we call them like humaniacs. There's all kinds of word for them. There's these vegan people that, and my girlfriend is completely vegetarian, and I have lots of friends who are completely vegan. But some of them take this extreme standpoint that everyone on the agricultural side is just this like evil, terrible person, and they just want to torture animals and all this stuff. And then people on the agricultural side then think that all the people that are on the animal welfare side are just trying to have this like big vegan conspiracy to like liberate all the cows one by one and topple the agricultural industry. So there's this big divide, right? And I was always kind of in the middle. I can get along with the farmers, I can get along with the animal welfare people. Like I didn't have this, like it wasn't a big thing for me. But my board got really nervous because as I started taking in more horses and dogs from farmers because they were abusing the shit out of them, they said, I think if you do this too much, it's going to affect donations. The farmer's going to get pissed off that you're out there taking all these animals and we're going to lose money.
So shitty, man.
Right, because that's our
Everything
responsibility.
gets so politicized,
and that's our animals can't speak up for themselves. And I wasn't taking animals that didn't deserve to be taken. The judge agreed with me on every case. I have a 100% prosecution record. I didn't lose a single case. They never even went to full trial because I had so much evidence that once we got to the discovery phase, their lawyer's like, he fucking got you, dude. You should plead.
Yeah.
So like I won every case without even going to trial, and they were like, we don't want to lose donations, so you shouldn't be so hardcore about this. And I was on fire, dude. I was like, I'm out. I got my boots on. I'm out doing something. I'm out in the field, like frozen, cutting chains off of dogs and stuff. Like I felt alive, right? Yeah. Especially after my whole marriage went to shit and everything. So this legal loophole said that the word A in A County Humane Society, it said that the plural does not exclude the singular and the singular does not exclude the plural. So A could mean more than one county humane society if the judge in that county says there's a need. So we had a big board meeting and they said, we don't want you to investigate animal cruelty. So I took the minutes of the board meeting. I went to the judge. I was like, hey, my humane society said this on record. They don't want me doing my job. So can I just start my own organization and just do it through my own organization? She's like, I don't know. I've never heard of that. And I was like, well, I came prepared. Here's this legal decision from 20 years ago. Yep. I think you can. And she's like, let me research it. I'll call you back. And so the judge calls me back. She's like, yeah, you can do that. It's surprisingly easy, actually. It shouldn't be so easy, but it is. So that's what I did. I formed my own county humane society, and I started doing the job that they wouldn't do. And got a lot of publicity for that. Social media. I had to raise awareness. We were all donation funded, so I had to go online and I had to tell my story. And we got all kinds of traction. Everyone was like really interested, really engaged with what I was doing. And as I started taking these dogs out of the streets, a lot of them had behavior problems because of the environment they were in, the way they were being treated.
Yeah.
But in Ohio, a lot of the shelters, some of the urban ones are different, but the rural shelters, they have no behavior team, they have no trainers. Their humane agent, if he exists, makes $300 a year, so they're not hiring a dog trainer, so they don't do any kind of work. So they're like, well, this dog's aggressive, we're going to have to put him down. I'm like, well, fuck, why did I just cut this dog off of a chain?
Just for it to die.
Right, so I just started taking him home. And we started seeing that many times, if you remove a dog from a bad environment and put him in a good environment, give them all the right things, and let them learn from new experiences, that their behavior will change. And I'll preface this and I'll pause right now and say that that's not always the case. And I had to learn the hard way that it's not always the case. I had to learn through bloody mistakes that involve dogs dying that that's not always the case. Yeah. But many times it is. And at that point in my infancy of looking more at like dog behavior and how to like help rehabilitate dogs, I really did think, because for a while it was that simple, that was kind of all there was to it. So that's what I was doing. I was out in the field taking dogs, taking them home, working on them, getting on the local news, getting them highlighted, getting them adopted. It was great.
Did you have like a facility that you were taking the dogs to?
All in my house.
Really?
And it wasn't designed like this where I have acreage and yards and kennels and stuff. It was just a house. I actually lived next door to this salon in town, and the salon catered to like elderly women. So I had 2 pit bulls and a Doberman, and they were out in the yard, and they were playing. And there's 4 distinct play styles that we've identified with dog behavior. One of them is called rough and rowdy. And if you've ever heard of a rough and rowdy player, you know exactly. They're rah rah rah. It sounds like they're fighting. But it's very mutual. It's very playful. It's fine. It sounds terrible, though. So I had my 2 pit bulls, my Doberman, just rah, 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 rah. And there's like 80-year-old women that are going to get their nails and their hair done. They hated me. They hated me so bad. So I had to get a small little farm out in the country. But yeah, I was just doing it in town, because we were never supposed to do that. All I wanted to do was the boots on the ground enforcement work. I wanted to raise awareness about the laws, and my intent was to get the laws changed, to get more pay and more funding, because at that time everyone in Ohio wanted to focus on making animal cruelty a felony. And I was like, guys, yeah, it should be a felony, totally. But what if there's no one to do the job? Yeah, right. We got to have enforcement too. That matters. Yeah. And there's so many counties where there's no one to even do this job. So make it a felony all you want. Add the death penalty. If there's no one to enforce the laws, it doesn't mean jack shit. So that was kind of my talking point. And long story short, we never got the laws changed. We had a lawyer write a draft bill. We went to all these politicians. They're like, yeah, that's super important. We don't want to take it on, because animal welfare issues are hard to get passed through legislation. They are. Historically, they're difficult.
It's weird.
Especially in an ag-heavy state. Then you throw on funding. I'm not just trying to get law changed.
So that's why, because the agriculture.
Agriculture, and I was like, hey, also, we need more money, guys.
Yeah.
We need you to carve out money from somewhere else. So that's always going to be dicey. Who do you take the money away from? You know?
And that must have been a weird predicament for you to be in, because being between agriculture and the animal rights people, animal welfare, because I mean, if you think about it from a logical standpoint, I mean, I look at it and it's like, yeah, like I prefer not to eat meat from a feedlot because I think it's disgusting the way they're treated, antibiotics and the way they're treated, like in this feedlot, and there's a bunch of them just walking around in shit, and like it's like, yeah, it's disgusting, and like, and it's not cool for those animals. Like, why would that's not right? Like, it'd be cool if they were being animals and being off in a pasture and like eating grass and being like real cows. That
I want it to be like how it looks on the country crock butter thing, the farm.
Yeah, totally.
That's what we want in society. That's not reality, though. Yeah.
But then you think about it, it's like, dude, that you're right. It's not reality. I mean, the reality of it, there's a lot of people that are trying to feed, and they're trying to make a profit. Right. So they want to keep their land all small, put all these animals in there, whatever. And I think most people are so disconnected from any of it. It's like they don't want to know about it. It's kind of like, if they knew, they would feel bad, because most people would feel bad because they're humans and we have feelings, empathy and all these other good things, and compassion. So it's like, yeah, they would feel bad if they knew, but most people just turn a blind eye to it. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna buy this packaged meat. I'm gonna buy this milk carton, and I'm not gonna ask questions. I don't give a shit. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. And the other interesting thing is too, like, I went hardcore vegan after we had this big animal cruelty case at a dairy farm. Yeah. If you Google the Conklin Dairy Farm, CONKLIN, Conklin Dairy Farm, and my name, you'll see all kinds of articles from like 2012 or so. And there was this veteran, actually, this guy who had a lot of mental health issues. He got hired on the farm, and he was like caught on video like punching these cows like in. like newborn baby calves, trying to feed him with the feeding tube, and they wouldn't take it. He would just start slamming him in the head and like DDTing him, and just like
Jesus.
He was nuts. It wasn't the farming industry. It was just this one fucking guy, you know.
Wow.
But it was enough for me to go, dude, I don't want to be around that. But then as I met other farmers too, even though I am more like on the animal welfare side, a lot of these guys are good farmers. A lot of the farms are small farms. The big companies contract out to smaller farmers, and they do have different practices. Yep. And at the end of the day, I do believe in capitalism. I believe in capitalism, and capitalism to me says that, yeah, they want to make as much profit, but they also, in order to make profit, they have to take good care of their animals too.
Totally.
You know, or they're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
So it's like there's more than one way to look at everything. And so I always had that like open-minded, you know, kind of approach. I was able to work with both sides. We just weren't able to get any laws passed. Yeah. So eventually, in order to stay relevant, since I had a good track record at that point of taking dogs from like cruelty situations, bringing them home, rehabbing them, and getting them adopted out, to stay relevant while we were trying to get the laws passed, we had at that point a ton of people reaching out, because I was one of the only people doing any kind of behavior work in Ohio, and they're like, hey, this dog needs to be rescued. They're at a shelter. It's going to be euthanized. It was a cruelty situation. I was like, okay, well, that kind of fits our mission, you know. We want to help with the overall issue of animal cruelty, so while we wait for the laws to pass, I'll start doing some more like pulling dogs from shelters that have been abused, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of
How are you being funded at this point, though?
All donations. And I was struggling, dude. I was so fucking broke. Yeah, it was all donations. We had no for-profit model. There was no fees for services, just a wing and a prayer.
Wow.
I let like my own personal car go into voluntary repo, because it was either pay my own car bill or, you know,
feed your dog.
Yeah, pay the vet bill or whatever. And I had another vehicle that was donated, this super old truck. I was like, well, I don't have payments on this one. I'll just let my own car go to shit, and they can take it. That's one less payment to worry about, you know. So, but at that point, I really felt like if I could get the laws changed in Ohio, for me in my head, and it sounds kind of crazy, but in my head, it felt like maybe my time in Ohio wasn't just a complete waste. Yeah. Like I didn't just fucking fail at life. Like, yeah, my marriage ended, but I accomplished something important. Right. And I was so focused on just trying to accomplish something important through this mission, this nonprofit, that I was just full steam ahead. I didn't care if I hurt girlfriends, relationships. Nothing mattered. It didn't matter. Anything that got in the way was just a distraction. So I pissed off some other rescues that you know, they had an opinion. I was like, I don't have time for your fucking opinion. I got my own agenda. Fuck off. You know, I was like, oh, you know, and it was in my mind, it was very honorable. But in hindsight, I was just a little too driven, and I was kind of a dick about it.
You were obsessed. You were obsessed.
I was very obsessed.
You had a direction you were going, and like it was kind of tunnel vision. You know, it's like, yes. Yeah, I want to get this done, and I get that. You know, especially from like a man's perspective, you know what I mean? It's like if your marriage fails and stuff like that, and you wanted to like at least leave there knowing like there was some change, there was some positivity that came out of that. So I
fuck everything up. Yeah, exactly.
I completely get it, man.
And because of that like laser focus, I burned some bridges. I was kind of a shitty boyfriend to some girls. You know, a few other things happened, but I also got a lot of traction. I started blogging for the Huffington Post, because they reached out like, hey, we've heard about you. Can you write some articles about pit bulls or animal welfare and BarkBox? Oh, your phone. Ha. Is that your dude?
That was one of the guys I was stationed with, actually.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool.
So, Phoenix, if you're watching this on Twitter, buddy, I don't know if it's still streaming. It might have turned off the live stream. But anyway, if you're listening to this, Phoenix, that was you calling me. I'm in the middle of a podcast, buddy. So, battery's probably going to... My phone battery will die, but it's all good.
Gotcha. So where were we? Sorry, I got distracted easily.
It's all good. So
I was a dick. That's
you were a dick to a couple people, a couple girlfriends, because you were driven.
Different rescues that had a different mindset, and but I was just so driven because of that we got a lot of traction. Yeah. So I started being looked at as an authority. People started asking me to blog and go to animal welfare conferences and talk about how we were doing all this stuff. And so kind of like it just really like, you know, I was always looking for that sense of self-worth from being a child and hearing this like, hey, you know, you shouldn't even be here. You're only here because dad raped me. And I wanted to kill you. Having that in my head, all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, you're this awesome animal rescuer. You're so great. You're this, you're that. You're going to change everything in Ohio. I latched onto that, man. I dug it. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Okay. I'm just turning this because I don't want my battery to
die. Gotcha.
So I'm going to just turn this. Boom. There we go. So this won't be recording anymore,
gotcha.
but this is still, cool. Our podcast is still recording. We're
right
good. And I'm gonna take pictures of you like during the while you're talking.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like it's like I'm just sitting here like
you're
all
good,
weird,
yes.
but it's just for
No worries.
for social media. So go ahead.
So yeah, man. We got the traction, and we had people blogging or asking us to blog, and I became this authority on this subject that I really only had a few years of experience doing. Rescuing dogs and rehabbing dogs. That was still pretty new, but I had found a way to tell the story effectively online. And so that gave us the traction. And then all of a sudden we had a couple different production companies go, hey man, we read your article in the Huffington Post. Have you ever thought about maybe, doing a reality TV show? And I was like, oh, fuck, because we were so broke and hurting for money so bad. It wasn't about, like, being a TV star. It was like, holy crap, I can get my message across.
Get your bills paid.
Yes. Holy shit, like, the exposure would be amazing.
Definitely.
So then I became even more laser focused on not just the Animal Cruelty Task Force idea, but let's turn this into a show so I can get this, problem solved from a different standpoint, because I didn't think the politicians were going to help me. So I was like, well, fuck, maybe the public will help me if more people can hear this message. So I became even more laser focused. Actually, I got approached by Lionsgate eventually, which was big deal for me. I'm still friends with the producer. He brings this dog here. We didn't get the show, but I get to hang out with this dog. And he came out and we did some self-filming, and the VP of Animal Planet Discovery Channel, they knew me by first name at that point, and this girl that had kind of she was a great girlfriend. She had motivated me to start the nonprofit in the first place. Right when I got divorced, and we dated off and on for a little while. And when it was on, it was really on, and when it was off, it was usually my fault. Because I was like, hey, I got more important shit to do. She was younger, she was like 10 years younger. I didn't take the relationship.
Smart man.
Or her, right? I didn't value her as a person though.
Right.
I really didn't. Not to the level that she deserved. Yeah. And so when Lionsgate was coming out, she wanted to like date me again, and we were kind of just we weren't dating, we were just seeing each other, we were hanging out.
We're hanging out.
And
Netflix and chill.
There you go. And she came over one day, and I was like, hey, I got all this stuff going on, and I just don't think it's gonna work out. Like, I think we should, just stop doing this. And she was just totally hit by surprise, and I was just kind of cold about it. And so she left. If he has to go to the, or she has to go to the bathroom.
I think she probably has to go out.
Yeah, we can do that. A little bathroom break for sure.
All right. Well, just let her out. Is there like a gate?
It's all gated. Yeah, you can just go ahead and open the door, and there's a gate after the door. So open that gate up right after the door. I'll go with you. There's a light and stuff out there too. That's our catch pin in case the dog gets out that shouldn't get out. This is our observation. This guy here is a dog killer.
Dog killer?
Yeah. The one out there that you met that was barking so much. None of us brought him over. He's back.
Now you can go outside.
We have some of your water or anything else. There you go.
If I talk to her, then she understands a little.
Right.
Hey, go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go.
So,
All right.
So yeah, man, I told her just kind of like I was done. I got to do the Lionsgate thing. I got the show going. Just thanks for everything. Thanks for the support.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, she died in a car accident.
Holy shit.
The day that Lionsgate actually drove into my driveway from California for the second time with a boom mic and everything else, I got a text from a friend of mine, and she was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you didn't hear? And she sent me a link, and it was already hitting the stories. She went out drinking with some other guy, and went the wrong way on the freeway after drinking, and there was a head-on collision, and she died right away. And like the level of guilt that I felt for that transcended the level of guilt that I felt for leaving the Army before I realized what was going to happen on so many levels, because I was just with it. I knew that she was sad, she was depressed, she loved me, she was a good girl, and I didn't appreciate her for who she was. I was like, I got the stuff. I'm gonna be online. I'm gonna be on TV. Blah blah blah. Just go about your. And she was 23. I thought she would just adjust and meet some other guy and life would go on. I didn't want to date her anymore, but I certainly didn't want that outcome. So that really rocked me.
Yeah.
That rocked me hard, dude, really hard.
I bet.
And I kind of internalized it. And when I get really hurt or when something really affects me, I just work harder. That's my go-to. So I'll just put in more hours.
Escape.
Yeah, just put myself right in my work. So I just got even heavier into work, heavy. Like almost like maniacally heavy. I was pulling more dogs than I had time to work with. But I was like, dog needs help. Yeah, 6 hours away. I don't care. I'll drive 6 hours. I'll go get it. Hop up on Red Bull and let's go. Yep. I just anything to avoid having to stop and process what I felt at that time that I was responsible for. My therapist has helped me a lot with that. I know she made her own decisions, and she is ultimately responsible for her own decisions. But I had to see a therapist to get to that point.
Oh, for sure, man.
I wanted to kill myself. I was suicidal for a while, and not right away. Right away, I just delved right into work.
Yep.
I didn't address it at all. Not for about maybe 7-8 months, and then it was April. And then as the holidays came around, this is the end of 2016 now. As the holidays came around at the end of 2016, she was like the thing that made the holidays good for me after my divorce. Like my first Christmas after the divorce, I had this little 300 square foot apartment. It was like carved out of this old Victorian house, just like a room.
Yeah.
1 bedroom. My son and I shared it. He has little like cars, Lightning McQueen, race car bed on one side.
That's
I had
funny, dude. That was my son's first bed when I got divorced, bro.
At Target, right? It was a Walmart special.
Dude, my grandma bought it for me for him because it was like, dude, I don't have shit for him. After the divorce, I was like, dude, I don't have shit.
Yep.
And he was like, I think he was, when we got divorced, I think he was 2 or 3, So I was like, shit, I need like something for him.
Yep.
And so she got that Lightning McQueen cars bed, dude.
Same thing. Heck yeah. And when he would leave for his mom's, I'd sit there and like smell his clothes and cry like a little bitch. And like, dude, it was terrible,
But it's hard in the beginning,
yeah,
man.
So hard, dude. And that first Christmas, I had nothing.
Yeah.
I had like, it was a 300 square foot apartment. We had 2 big dogs with us. And so I had a Charlie Brown Christmas tree that I put on top of the kitchen table because that was all I could afford and fit, and then the dogs wouldn't eat it, and it was just miserable. And then this girl came along, and then all of a sudden the holidays were good again.
Was that in Ohio or was that here?
Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, still Ohio. And so then after it was the holidays. It was because she made the holidays good after the divorce. So I kind of like just internalized it until the holidays hit again, and then all of a sudden it just came and hit me hard, hit me really hard, and I could barely even function. And then around that time, I also had some pretty bad dog fights on the ranch. At this point, I was starting to realize that dog behavior wasn't as simple as I thought it was. Yeah. It's not just a matter of taking them out of the bad environment and putting them into a good environment. There are things like canine PTSD. They've only done 1 study on it, and they did it with military working dogs. But canine PTSD is just as real as human PTSD.
It's a trip.
Just like you don't tell humans, hey, dude, they're just fireworks, get over it, or you haven't been raping forever, go on a date. You would never do that to a human with PTSD.
Right.
We, as a culture, have this obsession with fixing dogs. So we go, this dog should just get over it. They're not in that environment. They should just get over it. Yeah. But whether it's canine PTSD, whether it's genetics, whether it's inbreeding, because we have a lot of backyard breeders that now inbreed dogs, and inbreeding obviously creates a whole unique set of issues, whether it's a neurological issue, there's so many reasons why it's not as simple to just pull a dog from a bad situation and put them into a good situation. In my experience now, 11 years of doing this, seeing dogs kill each other on my ranch because I couldn't break up the dog fights that I didn't think were going to happen in the first place. Yeah. I know there's a lot more to it now. But I would say in my experience, it's about 70% or so of the dogs that we take from shelters or from bad environments. That's about all it takes for about 70% of them. You just put them in a different environment, give them time, let them decompress, let them relax, let them hang around some good normal dogs, and it is that simple. Right. It's the other 30% that is more tricky and more nuanced, and that's where things can go wrong. Things can go really wrong. The first and worst fight I had, was filming I had this dog that came from a dog fight investigation. And her ears are just mangled. They're like notched. Yeah. And it's sad, but it's also a little adorable because they're all healed up. So kind of like little reindeer antlers, we say. And people were loving at this time my videos on Facebook. And I was loving the attention, to be totally honest. Yeah. And so I had like 12, 13 dogs out in play groups. And they were what I would call now, the bulk of them were unstable dogs. Meaning that I had worked with them, but there was still something that could cause them to trigger and go over in a second, and then they were back to being reactive or aggressive. Whereas other dogs that are more stable, they may have had a bad day or a bad moment, but you can kind of train them to a point of kind of reliable behavior.
Yeah.
We have unstable dogs just like we have unstable people. And I was starting to realize this. So I had put a GoPro harness on my dog. I was like, oh, people love my videos so much, I'll get a little doggy GoPro backpack or, harness for my dog.
Yeah.
They can watch these adorable videos of dogs playing from my dog's point of view. And just that one little camera on my dog was enough of a difference for one of my unstable dogs to look at them and go, I don't know what that is, I'm gonna fucking attack you.
Wow.
That was it, just a little tiny GoPro camera.
Was it recording?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It was an old GoPro, so it wasn't like streaming or anything. But
Thankfully.
Yeah. And it was bad. One latched on, then another one latched on, and then there were 6 dogs. Like now I have a whole level of safety equipment. I've been trained on how to actually break up a dog fight if it happens, and we've been trained on how to mitigate the risk of them in the first place.
How do you break it up for someone that like? Because I told you I had the 2 German Shepherds and they got in a fight once, and I think it was rough play, and then
it just escalated.
And then one of them, the male bit the female, but he was like locked onto her face, like onto her lip.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, how do I get this fucker to get off of her, dude? Like, I was like, I mean, he wasn't gonna bite me. I wasn't afraid of being bit.
Sure. Well, and that can happen though.
Yeah, it could happen, but I wasn't afraid of it. It was
right.
kind of like they're my dog, so it was like it was whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
But I was like pulling by his tail, like trying to get him off. That wasn't working. So I had this electric racket that I use for bugs,
Oh yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm gonna zap your fucking tongue, dude, if you like don't like go over, dude.
Yeah.
And right before I zapped him, he just let go on his own.
Right.
But what is a proper way of
Good question. Yeah, there's a whole level of escalation. What I always say is you have to know your dog.
Right.
Because every dog has a different level of drive. Drive is the desire to keep going after something.
Yep.
And the more driven they are, the harder it's going to be to get them off. The more they've gotten into fights, the more they're going to keep fighting. The harder they fight, the more pressure they apply. So the main thought to get across, the number one main thought is you never want to pull one dog off of another dog as long as their teeth are still on that dog.
Yeah.
Because when you're pulling them and they're still engaged and locked on, and I don't mean locked as like a term, that locked jaw doesn't happen for dogs, but if they're actually like physically, like if they're on that dog, and you're pulling, you're just causing more damage. You're ripping, you're tearing, so you gotta find a way. The ultimate rule is find a way to get them to open their mouth. How to do that depends on the dog and the situation. So 2 dogs, 2 people. One pretty easy method, if they're not gonna like kill each other, is the wheelbarrow method. So what you do is you pick the dog up by their rear legs, like behind the hips. You basically grab them at the hips, and you lift them off the ground. So their front legs are on the ground, back legs are off the ground, and you kind of swing them in an arc, like a semicircle. Not straight back, 'cause you don't want to pull. Right. And so the movement of them being up in the air and then doing this thing with their paws, because they're kind of being swung in a semicircle, will cause a lot of dogs to go, hey, what the heck? Turn back and look at you, they've broken contact. The problem is if you're doing that by yourself with 2 dogs, one dog attaches, one dog reattaches or detaches, and you kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, dude, I was watching a video of I don't know why I even saw it, but I think maybe it's on YouTube or whatever. And I was going down the rabbit hole on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, it happens.
And I saw this this dog attack. I think it looked like it was like in India or some shit.
Okay.
And this dog just kept fucking going for the other dog. So people would disengage that dog, and then he just kept going.
Yeah.
Like, dude, he wouldn't
Strive.
stop.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, holy shit.
An uninterruptible attack is bad. A lot of dogs will react. A lot of people will react.
Right.
If I came up and smacked you right now, you'd react.
Right.
And in that moment, you're going to show me a different side of you. That's not who you are all the time, right?
Right.
So it's a reaction.
Yeah.
And a lot of dogs will react in a moment, and it's like, okay, I'm cool. And when it's unsustainable and at that high level of drive, you have to go to more and more serious levels. So if that doesn't work, one thing my veterinarian told me, before I say what she told me, I'm going to say, don't do this. Don't do this. But what my veterinarian told me was, if that doesn't work, you can always stick your thumb up their ass.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. And I made this face, like, what? And she's like, yeah, you stick your thumb up anyone's ass and don't tell them. They're going to look around and go, hey, what the fuck, man?
You're going to buy me dinner first, at least.
So this one dog fight that I'm speaking of, I had the one most aggressive dog, the one that started the fight, massive, big old dog. And I had her up in the air, and I had my thumb up her ass. And she was still latched onto this other dog's face and looking at me, and I was exhausted at this point. There's 6 of them fighting all at once. Wow. I didn't have any tools. I just had my hands. I was like, I thought I just had to bring him into a good environment. Like, I fucking kicked myself so much. But there was no one to tell me otherwise either, and there was no one else to even try with these dogs. Every dog I took in was pretty much guaranteed to die if I didn't give them a chance.
Yeah.
So like I gave them a chance, but I wasn't properly equipped or trained.
Yeah.
So the thumb up the ass thing didn't work. And it's funny because I used to do a prison program, and we would go and train dogs in the prison, and that was the first question they asked, like, "Hey, we heard there's a dog fight. You stick your thumb up their ass." And I was like, "Look, I'm not sure how you guys handle things in prison." And then I paused, like, "Is this gonna go over well?" I don't know how this is gonna go over. But
that's fine.
They were all like, "Yeah, we do that in prison."
Break up a fight.
We do that shit. But so that method doesn't really work. Then there's a whole level of what we call aversive tools. Yep. So these are tools that can be used to break up a dog fight, to basically disrupt their senses. What you don't want to do is yell and scream, because as you yell and you scream, you're actually going to pump the dogs up. Yep. And people, that's their instinct. Stop! Don't do it! Ah. Right. And you're just escalating. You're increasing all the energy. So you have to be calm. You have to be quiet. Like deadly quiet, and have tools. So low-level tools, there's water-based tools if this fight's not too severe. People have squirt bottles with water, squirt bottles with vinegar and water. You kind of squirt them and disrupt their senses. With the level of dogs I work with, that doesn't work once they've engaged, but it does work if they're like coming at each other. And I can squirt them in the eyes and go, "Oh, I'm just kidding, I don't like that." So that's one method that's water-based. The next method is like noise-based, not your own voice, where they have things like a shaker can, which you can make at home. You just get a can, put some pennies in it, wrap the top with duct tape, and you can shake it, or you can throw it on the ground as hard as you can. Again, it's a sudden noise to kind of like disrupt them. The whole point is to disrupt their senses so they disengage on their own, and then you can kind of regain control of the situation. If that doesn't work, then we have something called Spray Shield. It's citronella based, so it's a plant-based animal deterrent, but it's designed like if an animal's going to attack you, you can spray it. It's like a mist, a cloudy mist, and again, it's plant-based, so it's non-toxic, but it's a pretty strong deterrent. And so that on two dogs that are fighting, a lot of times they can go, "Oh," and it just, again, disrupts their senses, so you can regain control of the situation. And then I have, actually I put it away, very simple tools called a break stick. You can get a tent peg and make a break stick. You can use any kind of like wedged tool to make a break stick, but it's just something that you actually put inside the dog's mouth that's attacking to pry their mouth open and to get them to open up and to get them to detach. And then you can grab them and move on to the situation. And then if those methods don't work, what I learned when I was in Austin's the leader of the no-kill movement in the country. They have like the largest animals that are saved from cruelty situations.
Really?
Yeah. They're the leader of the no-kill movement. They have like a 98% save rate at their shelter.
Oh, wow.
And they do a lot of it through play groups. So they've had a lot of dog fights. So they've learned methods. And what they say is if you have a dog that's going to get into a dog fight and all of those methods won't work. Oh, and there's other stuff too. We have like a garden hose. All of our garden hoses have something called a fireman's nozzle. Yeah. So it's like a burst of water. We even have a water-based fire extinguisher. I've never once had to use it, but I learned from Austin where if you have to and they're going to kill each other, you can put the fire extinguisher, if it's water-based, and spraying with it, and it's just more of a blast of water just to get them to break up. But the method that's hands-on, if none of those methods work, is to have a martingale collar around your dog. Martingale collars don't have buckles. They slide over the dog's head. You see them on greyhounds. You see them on horses. And they have a part that, they're all cloth. They have a part, though, that kind of cinches up. Yep. There's a clip, and it cinches. And they say to grab that clip, put it at the back, and to twist and basically cut the dog's air supply off. And again, this is a life or death situation.
Yeah, for sure.
All the other basic stuff isn't working. These dogs are going to kill each other. Then you twist, you cut the air supply off, and the method is called feed the bite. So instead of pulling the dog off, you push the dog into the other dog. So you cut the air supply off at the nostrils and at the throat. And you just hold and count to 10. Guarantee they will let go in less than 10 seconds. And the fight's over. No one goes to the hospital. And then you have full control of the dogs. You can walk them, into a kennel or a crate or whatever the situation may be. But I knew none of that, dude. I knew fucking none of that.
You just did it out of the kindness of your heart and just out of a passion and wanting to like change the world. Yeah. And then learned along the way, man.
And then I realized that some of these animals, they do have some issues.
They're fucking animals.
Yeah, and it's not just like we always, it's because of the shelter. This shelter is terrible for euthanizing. Well, some of those dogs, they wound up on euthanasia lists for explainable reasons.
Right.
Sometimes it wasn't.
So you can accept that even like in your line of work, you can accept that there's some dogs that will just have to be put down, like they're not going to be savable.
Yes. And it took me a while to get there, and it took me a while to be honest about that. That was the big thing, is we had this no-kill movement that people looked up to me in that community because I was taking all these dogs that everybody else was going to euthanize. So I had them kind of looking up to me. Then we had this pit bull community, and there's the pro pit bull people and there's the anti pit bull people, and they are both kind of extreme. And I was on the pro side, so the anti pit bull people, they were watching every move I was making, and the pro pit bull people were like lifting me up on a pedestal saying this is the greatest person in the world. So I had all these different layers, so when something bad happened, I didn't talk about it. I wasn't going to go on social media and go, hey, you guys know that pit bull that the shelter thought was aggressive? Dude, he was fucking aggressive. I didn't say that. What good did that serve the greater purpose or the mission at that point?
Yeah.
And the reality is that transparency with these kinds of issues is so critical. If we don't talk about the fact that you can't train or fix every dog, if we don't talk about the fact that sometimes dogs really are aggressive and sometimes they can't be fixed, sometimes they can't be trained, sometimes the behavior can't safely be managed, the Latin term for euthanasia is a good death. Euthanasia means a good death. Right. And there is a difference between a good death and a bad life. And we have a responsibility, I believe now, as stewards and caretakers of these animals, that if we cannot give them a good life, we should try, though. We should try every alternative. We should take them from the shelter first and see if it's environmental or not. We should put them on medication if they have a mental health issue, or give them CBD oil, or there's a whole range of ways to try to help dogs. And at the end of the day, if we've done all of those things and they can't live a good life, I believe it's our responsibility to give them a good death rather than make them live a bad life.
Totally. I
And
agree.
we don't talk about that in the animal rescue community. We don't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. I think it's just one of those almost like a taboo,
Very
kind of
much so.
because it's like they are trying to save animals, but at the same time they don't want to accept the fact that hey, there's a chance that some of these dogs just are not savable.
Exactly.
And I love animals and I love dogs and I love all that other stuff, but I've always been of the mindset, and part of that may have been with my own upbringing, being attacked by a German Shepherd and plastic surgery on my face and all the other stuff, that if one of my dogs ever bit my kid, you're going down.
Sure, yeah.
And that's as a father, it's just
right.
kind of one of those things,
And that's just something where the reality was I had that balanced viewpoint, and I would take I don't care how bad the bite was, I don't care how much they wanted to bite me. I've taken dogs from shelters in Ohio where I would walk the dog, and I have this method where I'll grab the leash in my left hand, and I drape the leash over my right hand, over my wrist, and it drops straight down to make like a pulley system. Yeah. So if they charge me, I just extend my right arm, and they can't get to me. I've done that for an hour with dogs trying to just attack me until they get over it, and then I take them home. So I will give any dog a chance. But what I wouldn't do in the beginning was recognize and be open and honest and transparent about when it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I had my reasons, and I could justify them until I'm blue in the face. At the end of the day, they were wrong, though. We need to be transparent. We need to be open. We need to be honest, and I wasn't. And eventually it got out. People realized that I wasn't being completely honest. And so when you're not transparent about your own decisions, then people get to tell their own story.
Yep.
And they get to say, well, then this is who you are and this is why you did it.
So awesome, man, that you're bringing that up. I've had other people on the podcast, and it's something that I've learned along my life is if you don't have any skeletons in your closet, if there's something that you're not being transparent about, if you don't have any of that in your life, nobody has anything against you.
Yeah.
Nobody can say shit about you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
right.
like, oh, you know what this guy did, whatever. He put that dog down. I already shared that.
Yeah,
like
we know.
you don't have power over me.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I learned this past year because I destroyed the trust of some people because the dog that they gave me was aggressive and he was put down. And when they asked, I was like, oh, he's totally fine. We found him at home. Just whitewashed it over. And it happened in hindsight. It happened December 27th, 2016. December 28th, 2016. The same time that I was processing this girl passing away who had motivated me to start my nonprofit, motivated me to go off and leave the corporate world and do my own thing and find my way. And then she died 2 months after I broke up with her. Right. So in the midst of me processing all of that, I then had this dog fight where a dog killed a dog on my property, and I was just like, I fucking can't deal with this shit. It was too overwhelming for me on all different levels.
Definitely.
So when they asked for updates, I flat out lied, dude. I just fucking lied, and not because I'm a terrible person. I just didn't want to deal with what.
No, that's understandable.
I didn't want to relive it. I didn't want but because the dog was registered as a dangerous dog, there's a track record, so they could tell that. So eventually, I had to go, hey guys, look, I lied. I wasn't honest. Your dog actually was put down. I'm sorry. And it wasn't their dog. They legally assigned the dog over to me. So my dog, the dog you handed over to me, I couldn't fix him. And I wasn't honest. And I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. So we're now about 3 years later, and those people are still trying to make my life difficult any way they can.
Really? To this day?
3 years later, yes. And I've learned my lessons. I've become more transparent. I've used this experience. And it's been amazing. Honestly, it's terrible, but it's been amazing because there's so many of the people that come to me now and they boom, go on, buddy, go. There's so many people that come to me and they go, dude, we've done the same thing, but we weren't in the spotlight, so of course, no one knew. We need to talk about behavioral euthanasia more, and we don't. We need to talk. It's a big in the animal rescue community. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people they'll rescue a dog, it won't work out, and they'll just put it down. They just don't talk about it. Lots of reasons why. Lots of good, valid reasons why. But I think that the bigger picture here is, as a father, first of all, I don't want a dog that's going to be a human bite risk to my child in my home, just like you said.
Yeah.
And if we, especially the people who pull the dogs, the people who are the trainers, if we can't stand up and say, hey, look, this is actually what happened, this was the outcome, then we set this false narrative that everyone thinks that they can go and rescue dogs that have behavior problems from shelters, and it's just going to be fine. Because look, it's always fine when Steffen does it. So I can do it too. And now I realize that my false narrative to kind of push this bigger message, I thought that it was the right way to push this narrative. I didn't think about the fallout. I didn't think about the people who would then read my stories and go, well, I'm going to go adopt a dog with a bite history too, and then wind up with their kid getting mauled or something. Not that I know that ever happened, but still, now that I look back again, like you said earlier, hindsight's 20/20. I now use that message and I talk about my failures, my mistakes, what I didn't do right with almost every single one of my clients. When we talk about dogs who bite, one of my favorite tools is a muzzle.
Yeah.
Basket style muzzle. They can pant, they can drink water, they can take treats, they can do everything but fucking bite, right? Yeah. And I hated muzzles in Ohio because in Ohio, most pit bulls in municipalities where they have what we call BSL or breed specific legislation, laws that target a specific breed by appearance, not by behavior. Yeah. One of the requirements is they have to have a muzzle on. So I saw this tool, this really good dog tool for biters, as an extension of discrimination, so I wouldn't use them. And now I realize it's the only tool that actually removes the bite response before a dog can actually use their mouth and use their teeth. And I work with dogs who have already used their mouth and used their teeth. And even though we can rehab a lot of dogs, it is true the best predictor of future behavior many times is past behavior. So now every dog that comes in with a bite history, I'm going to muzzle train them. I'm going to muzzle condition them. I'm going to take that worst case scenario off the table as an option, so I don't have to deal with that worst case scenario ever again. But I also can then impart that knowledge on my clients.
How does isolation work for you? Like isolation with dogs. I've heard various people tell me that if you had a dog, like for example, the German Shepherd that I had that just hated other dogs. Yeah. Don't know why I hated other dogs. From the time he was a puppy, I was taking him out, trying to like socialize him the best that I could. And it seemed, even as a puppy, we were hiking on a trail that I go to all the time. And I think he must have been like 5 months old, and he tried to attack another dog at 5 months. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's uncommon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that's not normal. It's not, what's wrong with you, man? Yeah. And so I was talking to another trainer, and he was saying that, what you should have done with that dog before you give it back to the breeder was you should have put him in a crate and left him there. Okay. The only time you take him out of that crate is to feed him and for him to go to the bathroom. That is it. And you're the only person that he's allowed to see. You're the only person that takes him out. Nobody else takes him out. You're the only one. And he's all, you do that. He's all, think about it. He's all, with boot camp. You go to boot camp, they take your phone. You don't have any access to the outside world.
Break you down,
it's like,
back up.
Yeah. They break you down, and you're basically like, it's complete immersion, and you're totally isolated. And he's all, it's the same thing with dogs. He's all, if you would have isolated that dog and kept him in his crate, and the only time you take him out is to go pee and to eat, and you're the only one that does it, after about 3 months, it would be a pain in the dick for you. But after those 3 months, you'd be like Zeus to that dog. Right. And he would not even care about another dog. And I'm like,
it could work.
Interesting.
Possibly. So what he's talking about is your relationship with the dog. And as our relationships with our dogs strengthen, they listen to us a lot more. Right. A lot more, of course. Yeah. But then there's the whole issue of how does the dog feel about the trigger? So a trigger is a dog training word. How do they feel with the trigger? See, dogs don't know right from wrong. They have no morals, right? That's why we spay and neuter. They have no morals. But they know good and bad. And they see something and they identify it either as good or bad.
Yeah.
That's it. When a dog has a trigger and they see that trigger as something bad, then we have a few options. We can either suppress that response. We can teach them, hey, if you do this, if you go after this dog, you're going to get a correction.
Yeah.
We call it behavior suppression. That was the way most trainers train. They just relied strictly on behavior suppression. And the idea behind that was your dog is trying to be dominant. They're trying to be aggressive. They're trying to be, the alpha, if you will.
Right.
And so the response is you have to be more of the alpha. You have to be more dominant, and then they'll fall in line. Well, I always tell my clients, if the only tool you have in your tool bag is a hammer, every problem's a nail. Dog-on-dog aggression is not always that simple. Sometimes it's because they're fearful. A lot of times it's fear-based.
Totally.
Many times it's fear-based. I'm not sure about your shepherd, though. At 5 months, it sounds different.
Yeah, it was different because I took him around another trainer, and the trainer basically said that, like, this isn't fear. This is just pure aggression.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. And that's the thing with labels, too. We have too many labels out there with dog training. I can say many times it's this, and there's always going to be outliers. Right. I have a house full of outliers now. But if it is a fear-based or if it's based in nervousness and stress, when we're stressed out, the stress hormone is cortisol.
Yep.
Nobody makes good choices when their brain is pumping full of cortisol. If you think back to like the most stressed out point in your life, just imagine the time when you were the most stressed out, right? You're driving, and all of a sudden someone cuts you off in traffic and brake checks you. You might lose your shit, right? Right. Now imagine the best time of your life.
Yep.
Honeymoon, second marriage, whatever it is, the best time, best date, you got a massage, whatever the case may be. You're driving home from that moment where there's no stress and you're all full of endorphins and dopamines, and someone cuts you off in traffic and brakes you.
Yeah, fuck it.
Right. The same exact scenario gives you a different response based on what? The cortisol, the stress hormones. Yeah. They impact our ability to make good choices. So with a lot of dogs, again, not all, I think yours already sounds different, but with a lot of dogs, what I see when I see aggression is a response that's rooted in fear or stress or nervousness based on either past bad experiences or just a void of experiences where they just don't know what to do, or they've had a few experiences that said, hey, based on these past experiences, you should predict this behavior, so you should respond accordingly. And if all we do for those dogs is just suppress the behavior with control and corrections, we can get them for a short time to listen to us. But what I tell my clients is, if it's rooted in fear, so let's say it's a fear-based issue, because most of the times it is. So let's say that you are afraid of spiders, right? And every time you see when you shriek and you scream and you want to freaking kill the spider, and for some reason you guys have a lot of spiders in your house. I'm not sure why. That's on you. So you hire me, or your wife hires me rather, because your wife is tired of you shrieking and screaming. It's fucking embarrassing, right? She can't stand your level of reactivity, so she hires me, and I come over and I give her like a newspaper, or we put a shock collar on you, or I teach her, a real good jab and a cross, and I say, hey, every time he sees a spider and he makes a movement towards that spider, he shrieks and screams. The second he reacts, I want you to whap him. I want you to hit him as hard as you can, or I want you to crank that zapper up. I want you to zap him. Well, if she's good enough with her timing and the correction is high enough and strong enough, you're going to go, oh, that fucking sucks. I don't want to do that. So we can teach them through consequence, teach you through consequence, not to react to the spider when you see it. So you'll see a spider and you go, oh, fuck, I want to scream, but my wife's right there. Probably shouldn't do it, right?
Yep.
That's how we handle a lot of dog training. Do you ever feel differently about the spider?
Nope.
So that's why we do more behavior modification. We do more therapy.
Sense.
Yeah. We want them to actually feel differently about the spider. Not all dogs will. Not all dogs will feel differently about the trigger. We do have some dogs where it's pure aggression. And you can't, what we do, those methods don't really work because it's coming from a different place. But when it's coming in, primarily it does, when it comes from a place of fear and nervousness and stress and bad experiences, we can many times do, what it is it's operant conditioning, it's classical conditioning, it's the stuff that Pavlov and B.F. Skinner taught us. Yep. We call it BAT training in the dog world, behavior adjustment training. You can Google that, BAT 2.0. You can go on YouTube actually, go BAT 2.0, dog aggression. You'll find some amazing videos. And the whole concept is to guide the dog up to what they see and perceive to be fearful. But instead of waiting for the reaction and giving them a correction, you teach them beforehand a command. We call it a recall command, like watch or look at me or focus or potato. I don't care what you call it. But it means look at me, And in exchange, you're going to get your favorite thing, the most amazing thing in the world, which is usually food. Sometimes it's toys. Not all dogs are food driven. Some dogs are toy driven. But it's something that can create some high value reward that can create those positive feelings, that dopamines, the endorphins, the things that make us happy, because you cannot be stressed and happy at the same time. Our bodies cannot hold those, and dogs' brains cannot hold those chemicals in at the same time. They fluctuate. They're inverse, one or the other, right? So if it's a stress issue and before the dog goes over a threshold and reacts, we can then give them something amazing and bring that stress down, bring the dopamines up, and we do it enough times, then they start to associate the good stuff with the trigger. And that's how we start to kind of do this behavior modification program and use time and distance and what we call high value rewards to help them learn through association that that thing they perceive to be a bad thing because of fear is actually a good thing. And that's from a distance. Up close and personal, we still have to get that dog to actually interact with another dog. So we have to use stable helper dogs, right? And the muzzle. Yeah. So the muzzle's the tool that gets us from the distance. And also when you're up close and personal, you can't use food. You have two dogs and you have food, you're gonna have a fight. So the food helps from a chemical standpoint. It affects brain chemistry. And people that not treat trainers, people that make fun of treat trainers, they either met a bad treat trainer or they met a bad treat trainer. They just don't understand it. And I encourage anyone that says treat training isn't the way to go to reach out to me, because it's usually a person who wasn't trained well enough in how to use treat training appropriately. You're not supposed to use treats forever. My dad didn't use any treats at all. My dad's all old school. It's all corrections. You know, everything was dominant, so we got to be more dominant. And he goes, "Oh, Steph, you just walk around with a hot dog, you know, a fanny pack full of hot dogs all day." I'm like, "Dad, they're not called fanny packs. They're training bags. They're way cooler." Yeah. But also, the whole idea is to start with that, to kind of bridge that gap, to start that communication, to change the brain chemistry. You know, when you eat something really good, they say that if it's a good enough meal, your brain can start to produce opioid-like receptors that become activated, right? And as you know, opioids are so amazing, they can make you ruin your life. That's how good they are. They destroy lives, right? So if they're that good, then why wouldn't we use that as a tool to counteract the cortisol, right? Why just suppress the behavior? Because when you suppress a behavior and they internalize that frustration, well, you're just increasing the stress. You create this pressure cooker inside the dog, and they handle it and they handle it until they can't handle it, and they blow up and get more aggressive. But if we can change the way they see the trigger, if we can change how they feel about the spider, and then we can let them observe. That's association. The second way dogs learn, one is association, the second way is observation. So while I do this here on the ranch, we're doing this whole process with the focus command, look at me, watch me. We're focusing on the dog's emotional well-being too. Physical, mental, emotional. Did they get all the exercise they needed? Did they get the training they needed? Did they get the either medication or CBD with or without THC, like whatever the right answer is to get them in the right place mentally, physically, and emotionally? While we're doing that, we're training them on that recall command that says, hey, if you get stressed out and I say this word, look back at me, you'll get something amazing. And then we train them to wear the muzzle, and the whole muzzle conditioning process can take a week or two. They have to view the muzzle as a positive tool. Everything's got to be positive, even if they're super aggressive. We have to make it positive, again, so they can actually feel differently about that spider that we talked about, that analogy, if you will. So we make it a treat dispenser. We line it with peanut butter. We put a paper towel around it, and we put their food in there and just have them eat out of our hands with them until they see that muzzle as the thing that they equate to treats and food. And then you put the muzzle on. Most people just throw the muzzle right on and go, okay, off with the dog you go. And they're pawing at the muzzle and they're stressed out because it's a foreign object around their face. Yeah. There's a whole process where we kind of get their mind and body right first. While we do that, we teach them some basic recall commands, which builds that relationship. Hey, trust in me. If you pay attention to me, you're going to get paid. I'm going to give you good stuff if you pay attention to me. Then we teach them to wear the muzzle. During that whole process, they get to watch my other dogs who just play normally. And they get to learn through observation. That's the second way to learn, through observation of other dogs. And then once they're ready, we go ahead and just put them in there with the muzzle on, because if they make a bad choice, I know that nothing bad is going to happen. We leave a long leash on them, because my dogs are trained. My dogs that we use as helper dogs, they won't engage if there's an incident. They'll disengage and back off. With the leash on and a muzzle on, all I have to do is step on the leash. My dogs go away. Nothing bad happens. No dogs get killed. Right. You know, no one winds up at the hospital. I have scars like all over from dog bites and stuff. I have so many freaking dog bite scars from not knowing the right way to do this. Right. So we mitigate all that now. And we see that a lot of these outliers, they really can learn. But if they can't learn and they truly are an aggressive dog, we can give them every possible chance. and give them every way to learn and show us a different way to respond before we then have to look at, do we have to make a different kind of decision or not.
Right. So what's the name of your organization?
So we have a for-profit and non-profit kind of model. I learned in Ohio that the all for-profit thing does not work. So my dog training business, which is where this we're licensed here, is under my dog training business, is called Save Them Dog Training. And then the nonprofit side, and that pays the mortgage, it pays the utilities, it pays all the bills, vet bills, food, all that stuff. What it doesn't cover is our staffing expenses, and then all of our like capital campaigns and expansions. We have 10 acres here, so we want to build another barn and hire more employees. That's all nonprofit. That's called the Underdog Alliance. So we fundraise to pay for like staff and all that stuff, and then basically my salary and then all of the overall overhead expenses. We get paid through my training business, and my training business is focused primarily on shelters. I do take some private clients, but mostly I refer my private clients out, and I take a lower rate, and I just stay helping the shelters. But I found a way that I can help the shelters, I can help the rescues, I can help all the dogs I was trying to help in Ohio, but with a model where I can actually sustain myself as a business owner.
Totally.
And then if we can get donations, we can hire more employees, we can do expansions, but I can cover all of the bases that I need to cover with this training business.
Do you do board and train or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Again, for private clients and for rescues, we just really only reserve about maybe 2 or 3 slots for the private clients, and that's usually like the Hollywood clients, and we charge a lot more for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Then that lets us charge almost next to nothing for the rescues.
So how did you build up and how do you get awareness out like on social media? How did that all get started? Basically, you started doing your
my first nonprofit.
So your first nonprofit, and that was like that's where you started building your social media, like with your following and getting more notoriety. It was like just basically putting out videos, getting people to know what you were doing.
Correct. Yeah, being a storyteller. That's what you are, right?
Yep.
Being a storyteller. I was taking dogs. I was out in the middle of Ohio with this beaten down truck. That was freaking had this exhaust leak right in the middle, and in the wintertime I had turned the car on because the exhaust leak was in the middle. The whole truck just billowing smoke and
getting all tired, dozing off.
Yeah, right. It was terrible. So I was out there just doing that, and I had like $10 in my account, and I'd have to go online and say, hey, look what we just did. Here's our PayPal link, and sit at McDonald's and wait for like a $20 donation to come in so I could fill my truck up and get home.
Wow.
Like I shit you not. I was sitting there with a cup of coffee.
I love those stories though, man. Yeah. I really do.
Yeah.
Because it's authentic and it's real. You know what I mean?
Sure,
it's like, and a lot of people, you see like, you see someone like you that has like, the following that you do, and you have 10 acres out here, you got all these dogs here. People are entrusting you with their dogs to train them and rehabilitate them and all these other things. But a lot of people don't see all the work that went into that.
Or the mistakes and the skeletons and the people that pissed off because they didn't do things the right way at first or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that dog that you weren't able to save and that you didn't initially tell the truth about, and you came back and
I did come clean.
And you came clean about it. That person just can't see the good. You know what I mean? It's like the one mistake that you made, but they don't see all the good that you're doing just because of that one mistake. It's sad, man.
I think at the end of the day, it is. And at the end of the day, I don't blame them for their response. Their response is over the top. But their response was prompted by my actions. So I'm going to own that and say, you know what? That's fine. It's on me. Yeah. And now I can use those as a talking point because there are so many other rescues. It's in a weird way, the silver lining is I've been able to help so many other rescues be transparent. I've been able to help counsel people through euthanasia decisions. Yeah. When they go, God, I don't think I can talk to anyone about this. Oh, wait, Steffen knows about this. And then I end up getting phone calls and texts like, hey, man, this is what happened. I think I have to put the dog down. And I don't want to tell anybody. I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. Who wants to talk about that? I understand. Let's talk about it. And so I've found a way to, and every time I talk about it, I have to reshare that story. I have to rethink about what I walked into that day when that dog, who was already registered dangerous, had ripped another dog's throat open. And I had to walk in and see that after my son and I made gingerbread houses. Like, that fucking rocked me, dude. Yeah. But if I have to relive that every day, and it lets somebody else go, you know what? I should muzzle my dog. Who cares how it looks? Or have another rescue go, all right, you know what? We can discuss behavioral euthanasia. It's okay. We need to talk about it. If we can change the the conversation, because we have this hardcore no-kill movement, and we have this hardcore pro-pit bull movement, and the no-kill movement says no kill, right? And pro-pit bull says pro-pit bull. And I think that at the end of the day, we should be killing as few dogs as we possibly can, and we should give every dog a chance, and we shouldn't judge dogs based on appearances or genetics, but we also have to recognize that sometimes dogs are dangerous. Sometimes we can't fix them, and if it's a public safety issue, or if the dog is suffering so much mentally because of whatever happened to them that we couldn't figure out and fix, again, a good death is better than a bad life, but being able to talk about it is even more important. And that's, we haven't gotten there yet as a community, as an animal welfare community. People on the outside, like you go, yeah, dog bites a kid, dog's gone. You say that to an animal welfare lover, they will crucify you. Oh, the fuck, there is a place for the dog, what's wrong with you? They will crucify you. There's this extreme, like, you can't have this middle of the road approach. And what I can't do anymore is pretend that I'm in that group and I never do euthanize, and that I think that all dogs are good. That all dogs are, they're not good or bad, they're just animals.
Right.
You know, they're just animals. That's all. It's not a matter of good or bad. It's not a matter of anything other than they're animals, and we're trying to help them and be good stewards. And if we can't, then there's a responsibility that we have to make.
And I think there's also, I mean, truth be told, a lot of times, most times I would say, like with a bad dog or with a good or bad,
aggressive,
it's usually the owners.
Many
Lot of times are the fucking problem, dude. Like, so I used to take my shepherd, the female, because I got her first. I'd take her to the dog park in Pasadena, and I wanted to socialize her and like whatever, and I would take her there, and she'd get fucking bit. All the time.
I hate dog parks, dude. I hate dog parks.
I'm like, dude, fuck these dog parks, man.
Dog parks are the worst.
And the thing is, like, she would get bit, and because she was a shepherd, everyone's looking at her like, oh, it's like, dude, she is the least aggressive dog ever. She's so docile and sweet. Like, she's not gonna bite anything.
Right. Dude, the dog park is like the kiddie area at the mall.
It really is, man.
The asshole kids have the parents on their phones not paying attention. You know, it's that same thing at the dog park.
It's like, dude, what are you doing with your dog? Get your dog away from my dog. You know, and number one, like, you have an aggressive dog. If you're an owner, you should know that your dog's aggressive or not. And if it is, why are you fucking here?
Right.
You know, and I see it like when I go and hike. There's been a couple times where there's been like an aggressive dog, and so the lady's like, hey, my dog's real aggressive, so, you know, be careful. It's like, if your dog is aggressive, ma'am, what the fuck are you doing on a public trail for?
Yes, exactly.
Why are you
10 acres
here?
in the desert for a reason.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that's just like, to me, it's just common sense. It's just logic. So like, when I realized at 5 months old, when I realized that my shepherd was aggressive, and I saw him try to attack another dog, that was it. It's like, until I get that under control, I'm not going to risk the liability for myself or anybody else of taking that dog up on a public trail. Well, it's stupid.
Our liberties end when we start to impede on other people's liberties, right? So
it just didn't make any sense to me.
I think we should be able to do whatever we want as people. That's my own personal view. I should do whatever I want in my house, and as long as what I'm doing doesn't affect you, then leave me alone. But when you take an aggressive dog out, and that's your property, and that dog is now then affecting somebody else's freedom to be out in public, or their dog's ability to have a good time, well, that's fucked up. That's on you then. You've just impeded on their liberties. Now you're the asshole. So
that, like, today I was telling you, I took Macy hiking with me, and she's a chocolate lab. You know, she's super sweet, and I don't have her on a leash because why would I? You know what I mean? She has an e-collar on, and that's how I communicate with her. Like, it's very rarely do I. And the main reason I use it is because there are rattlesnakes up there. There are like things up there, and it's like, if she gets close to one, she's going to get shocked, because it's like, it's like, I want to protect her. Like, I don't want you to get hurt, and I need you to listen right now. You know. But most of the time it's just a vibration. You know, it's like, hey, like, come back. I'm trying to call you, like, whatever. But not only just the owners, but just people in general sometimes are really stupid the way they handle dogs, or the way they react with dogs. So like, I have this little, I mean, she's here right now, a little 6 month, a little lab. She's cute, and she's a puppy. She's a fucking puppy. And to hear some of the reaction, oh my God, people like jumping back like she's some attack dog, and it's like, so imagine that with like pit bulls and German shepherds. It's even worse because of the way they look. And it's like, that's part of the problem, that the dog doesn't know how to fucking respond when you're responding that way. You know, so there's a lot of that. You know?
Energy is so much, like, so important. They pick up on our energy. They pick up on the energy of the people around them. And we used to always go like, oh, dogs can smell fear, and we just had no science behind it. I fucking love science. I love data. So they actually did this study a year ago, and they put humans in a room, they cranked the temperature up, and they had them watch videos and images that were designed to elicit specific emotional reactions: stress, fear, nervousness, neutral, and then happy emotions. They then collected their sweat on a Q-tip. They went into another room with the dogs, where dogs were on heart monitors. They had testing their cortisol levels, all that stuff, and they had a handler who could observe behavior. All they did was they had the dogs smell the Q-tips.
Wow.
That's fucking it, dude.
Wow.
And the dogs that smelled the Q-tips from the people that were feeling fearful or nervous, their cortisol levels went up. Their heart rate quickened. They became less accepting of new things coming into their circle, and they became more protective of their handler. All that happened from smelling a fucking Q-tip.
That's a trip, dude.
So you can't tell me that what we're putting out there.
Oh, it's totally true. And I that was part of the thing. Like, we talk about guilt, of like not, like, you don't do things the right way. You learn a lesson from it, hopefully. Like, for me, like, having to get rid of my male shepherd, like, it crushed me, because I was like, dude, like, the female, like, I was happy to, because like I knew she was going to a good home. I know the guy, and it's like I can check in. He sends me pictures, and it was just better for her, and I knew that. With the male, it was like, fuck, I failed him. I didn't do it right. And a lot of it was that domineering, like, dominate this dog, like, I'm the alpha, and I'm going to show you I'm the alpha. It's like, motherfucker, he wasn't trying to be alpha over me.
Right.
He didn't give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when he was in the house, like, he knew who was boss. I didn't need to really show him. Like, he was just happy-go-lucky, go to my kids, lick their face. Like, he was totally sweet.
Yeah.
It was just other dogs were his trigger, and he would go crazy. And so, like, I spent all this time correcting him, popping him, doing this, doing that, trying to get him to, like, with the spider analogy, it's like, that's what I was doing. You'd see another dog, oh, you're looking at another dog, boom, shock him. And I was doing what the trainers were telling me to do. And it's like,
of intentions.
Yeah, I was trying to help, and looking back, like, hindsight being 2020, I think a lot of it was him picking up on my nervousness of, like, what's this dog gonna do?
Yep.
What's he gonna do?
Yep.
And I struggled with anxiety and panic attacks and this and that. So, like, I would be out in public, and my anxiety goes up, my panics go up, panic attacks go up, and whatever. And he was feeling that. He was reading that. So I would be walking on the trail, and I was thinking about the way that I walked with Macy today. It's like, I'm totally carefree.
Yeah.
And she picks up on that. She knows it.
Yep,
She's not going to run far away from me, and I'm never going to be able to get her back. This was no training of me being like, hey, like, I got to train her before I let her off leash. It's like, no, I'm gonna let her off leash, and she's gonna read my energy. She's gonna know.
Yep.
And so what does she do now? Like, she runs up, she'll run a little bit, and if she can't see me, she comes back.
Checks in.
Or she'll go up, and where she can't see me, she'll turn around and look and see where I am.
Bond is strengthening.
Yeah, and it's like that. I love it, because it's like, dude, like, she got to be a dog.
Yep.
I got to be a human and hike, and not have to have her, like, getting all over my feet when I'm trying to hike.
Totally.
So it was perfect, man. It
was
a win-win.
Yeah, totally.
So what are you doing now? Like, what's the goal of your organization, both the for-profit and nonprofit? Like, what are you trying to do?
So what we want to do is we want to encourage more rescues to actually take these behavior case dogs on. We have a big movement again in this no-kill community, and I'm still active in the no-kill community. I've changed my message. Yeah. For me, it's not save them all. It's let's give them all a chance. Yeah, let's give them all a chance and save the ones we can. Yeah. And don't be ashamed about the ones you can't, and don't hide it, and don't not tell people, because it's just the bad outweighs the good with that choice. And I learned that myself. So the plan really is to show through our work here. We're trying to collect some data and some records, what the outcome is. How many times when we see a dog, especially a large breed dog, in a shelter exhibiting what we may consider to be aggressive behavior, how often is it environmental? And if so, how easily it is to change that, and how often is it something more deeper, more systemic? And then what's the prognosis? What do we do with that point? Because there's no blueprint right now.
And as of right now, it's like 70-30. You said like 70
in my
is
experience, it's about 70% of and then we're talking about behavior cases. They're already showing behavior issues. About 70%, they're easy turnaround. We decompress. We put them here with the guys, with our dogs. We let them get all that kennel stress out. We have hiking trails right behind the house. They're private, basically. It's public land, but no one can get there, so it's basically our trails. So we do all these things, kind of get their mind and body right. And then once we get their mind and body right, we say, okay, now where are we at behaviorally? And many times the muzzle's not even needed at that point.
That's
None
awesome.
of that stuff's even needed. So we want to show other rescues, though, that you can do this. And I think the proper way to do it, and we're working on a couple of the different groups to kind of maybe put some data together, is to change the model. Right now, if a dog is going to be euthanized at a shelter, if you're on any kind of like shelter pages, animal welfare pages, rescue cross-posting. They're always talking about the dog that's going to die at 7. That's when most shelters close.
Right.
And so then there's always this big mad dash to save the dog, right? Yeah. Always. People are pledging donations, and then someone stands up and goes, all foster the dog. And then everyone goes, this person's a hero. And they are. And I don't want to take that away from them. But if the dog is exhibiting behavior issues in the shelter environment, and you are taking the dog because it reminds you of Fluffy, or because you just don't want to see the dog die, or whatever the case may be, but you don't have the skills and the tools to handle aggression or reactivity, and you have other dogs in your house, or you have kids, or whatever the case may be, honestly, you shouldn't take that dog. You should send that dog to a training facility first. Get the crazy out, decompress, figure out what we're dealing with. Figure out, are we in the 70% of mild behavior cases, or are we in the 30% of more serious behavior cases, and then have those dogs go to a foster or to a rescue. And so my goal really is to encourage more trainers to step in the middle and be that kind of middle go-between from the euthanasia list to a foster home or an actual home. And a lot of trainers shy away from working with rescues and shelters, and a lot of trainers specifically shy away from working with behavior cases and bite cases. There's no guarantee of results. It's easy to get sued. I always tell people, well, your dog's not a car and I'm not a mechanic. I can help you, but at the end of the day, a lot of the training is back on the owner, and at the end of the day, you may do everything you do and it still doesn't work. Maybe the dog just had a bad day, or whatever the case may be. So there's no guarantee of results. So a lot of trainers do, from a standpoint of like protecting their business, they won't work with bite cases. They'll go, oh, your dog bit? Nope, put it down. We won't deal with that. We won't help it. And I'm constantly putting myself in the middle of these situations. And so that's our goal, I guess, is to encourage more trainers to step in, encourage more rescues to work with more trainers, and ultimately trying to help more of these large breed behavior cases and get the ones where it's just environmental, change the environment, and get them somewhere better. And if it's more serious, well, we'll talk about that, and figure out if we can give them some tools, like teach them to wear a muzzle. And, sometimes if the dog is super people friendly and then just hates other dogs, that dog is still really adoptable. If they hate other dogs, you put them outside, and when you're on your walk, you have a muzzle on.
Yep.
Why? Well, because everyone's got that neighbor with the Pomeranian with the 30-foot retractable leash, and the owner's not paying attention. You mitigate the risk.
Yeah, and that happened a lot too with my shepherd when I would take him out on walks. Like, I have him protected. Like, he has a muzzle on.
Right.
I know that, like, on my end, he's good.
Right.
The prong collar's on, the e-collar's on, like, and we're going for our walk, and it's all the tools are there. But it's the other fucking owners that let little Fluffy go and come running at my dog trying to bite him. Right. He's gonna react, you know?
Exactly.
And I was scared of, like, the judgment of certain people, like, oh, what are they gonna think of me that I got rid of my dog? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, I gotta take care of me and my family. That's what's number one. And, like, having 6 back surgeries and having, like, a dog that's 100 pounds going to lunge for another dog, whether it be to protect himself or protect me or whatever, it still is a big liability.
At that point, yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like, when I talk about the thousands that I spent on his training to try and make it workable, try to make it where it's like, okay,
nothing.
cool.
Yeah.
And it didn't pay any dividends, you know? So I did try.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it was like, hey man, like, just give him back to the breeder.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because maybe he can, like, give him a better life. Maybe he can just become just the Schuntzen dog. That's all he does is Schuntzen. He doesn't need to be around, other dogs walking down, parks or whatever. He can just do police work. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of it, what we do here is we try and find, like, okay, maybe they're not a family dog.
Right.
But what could they do? It could be a farm dog, a working dog. Like, what could their role be where they're still happy? And then ultimately what it comes down to us is, if we can't find them a home, can we keep them safe and happy here? Can we give them a quality of life? Maybe they can't be in big play groups, but can we find, like, one dog and really strengthen the bond with that one dog? So at least those 2 dogs, maybe they're aggressive. Maybe we have dogs who have put people in the hospital. We have dogs who have killed other dogs. I mean, we're talking about serious bite cases here. Right. If we can provide a quality of life, and they're stable and they're happy and they're healthy, even if it's not a traditional life, if it's a more managed lifestyle, then we'll keep them.
Yeah.
If we can adopt them out, even better. If we can't, but we can keep them happy and stable, we'll keep them. If we can't keep them happy and stable, and they're suffering and they're at bite risk, and we can't manage that appropriately and safely, or keep them in a point where they have a quality of life, then yes, we're going to euthanize them. Yeah. And I wish to God I had the balls to say that 4 or 5 years ago. But I was so caught up in this no-kill message and pro-pitbull that we never wanted to show the other side. Not for nefarious reasons, but because we were
No,
trying
because
to push
it's
this
like,
message.
but no, but I think there's a lot of like like the social justice warriors out there that
Yeah.
like they jump on this thing where it's like you said, like the no kill or the pro pit bull, and it's like they become obsessed with it.
Yes.
Where it's like they can't even hear
Yes.
the other side of the argument.
And I was guilty of that.
And that's the truth, And like at the end of the day, it's like for me personally, it's like I want to hear all the sides. I don't want to hear just one.
Yeah.
You know,
and
and
you make up your own mind.
Yeah, and then I make up my own mind, like what works for me. But for me, it's always been like, at least with my dogs and stuff like that, it's like there's a gray area.
Yes.
It's not just black and fucking white,
is.
dude.
It
I'm
never
sorry,
is.
it's not.
It never is.
And it's like I think it's the same way with we talked about like diet and stuff. It's the same way with like with vegans want to tell you how like everyone should be a fucking vegan and like whatever. And I was like, that's cool because it might work for you, and if it works for you,
Awesome.
I'm all for it.
Hell yeah, happy
but
for
like.
you.
But if you're like breaking femurs and shit because you
Right.
don't have the right nutrients in your body, you're not supplementing with
not
whatever you
working
need,
for you,
then just stop doing it.
Right, yeah,
You know what I
exactly,
mean? Like,
totally, yeah.
It's all good, but you see people that are like totally like racking their lives because they believe in it and they believe in it hardcore. But it's
Right.
like it's not doesn't mean it's always the best way.
Right, exactly. And everyone's got to find their own path. Everyone's got to find what works for them
Totally.
the best way. Yeah, totally.
I think your stance on it though is amazing because like and you're willing to admit that, hey, listen, I was that guy that was like, no, pro this, pro that, and you didn't want to talk about the other side, but I think there's freedom in that.
Point
There's,
that I was disingenuous. Yeah,
yeah, and there's freedom in it now that you're like willing to own that and say, you know what, like there's some times where it's not going to work, and like you said, like a peaceful, easy death is better than a terrible life.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the thing with my shepherd even was like, dude, I'm not going to just have him in the backyard.
Right.
He's not going to be some fucking junkyard
dog, right.
And it's like, would I have enjoyed him? Would our family have enjoyed him? Sure, absolutely. But he never would be able to leave the house. And like for me, that's not a dog. That's like you're just a, I don't know what you even call that. You're just here for my like convenience. Like, and it just seemed kind of like odd. I was like, nah, I'm not willing to do that. So
there's a term in the well, not in the no kill community. The critics of the no kill movement. One of the criticisms is that the no kill people will warehouse dogs, and warehousing sounds just like what it is. You keep them in a crate. And there are rescues, there are sanctuaries that have been raided, and they have, and I actually was involved in one. We raided this rescue in Ohio that had 450 dogs. They were a no-kill sanctuary, which sounds amazing. Everyone wants to send their dog to a no-kill sanctuary. We went there, and it wasn't like, just like the country croc thing with the farm. Yeah. That's not the way farms work, and that's not the way no-kill say. If dogs wind up at places like that, they're going to live a very highly managed lifestyle because they're dangerous. So we went to this one no-kill sanctuary, and it was just a glorified hoarding situation. These dogs were in these is a pig enclosure, pig barn, pig stall. What I forget the
pig
right
pen,
word. But large, huge. I mean, it had room for hundreds of pigs in there.
I would just call it a pen. But
Okay, so there you go. So we can read it. So big, long, and
but I can visualize it.
And he's with a ton of pig enclosures in there.
Yeah.
And they just put crates in there, and just every pig enclosure had crates with 7 or 8 dogs, just one dog per crate, and they were lined with feces, lined with urine. I mean, and they're like, well, we didn't kill the dog. Oh, fucking good for you. Like,
yeah, fucking good for you. Exactly.
Right, yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah, I've really progressed, and I've always been that middle of the road person. I just wasn't honest about it in the beginning. I held this torch of never kill a dog, and all pit bulls are good. And it's like,
and part of that was you were probably because you were being put on a pedestal by
very
those
much
people,
so.
And
you look back to my childhood, like being accepted by a group. I was like, holy fuck!
Absolutely, that makes perfect fucking sense.
I'm finally accepted. These guys, they fucking love me, and my own mom didn't fucking want me, and these guys love me. Like, I felt so good.
That's amazing, man.
But yeah, there was a cost to it. So
Totally.
I'm back. I think the pendulum has swung to like a really good, healthy point. And like you said, it sucks that these people haven't let it go. But in the way it doesn't, because it does kind of force me to go, hey, look, let me tell you about all my skeletons, because they're going to tell you anyways.
Right.
And like you said, it kind of takes the power away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely. I'm going to ask you a couple questions that I ask everyone that comes on.
Yeah, man.
First one being that if you had one person or one book that inspired you the most your entire life, who would that person be, and what would that book be, and why?
My entire life.
Your entire life. So it could be in regards to your current business. It can be in regards to the military. It can be in regards to your upbringing. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Your whole life.
Boy, it's a tough one. My instinct, as you said, that was my son. That was my instinct, but he's only 12. So does that count? Is that long enough?
No, because
the desire to be a dad was always there from a kid.
That's huge.
Okay, So it honestly was my son and the desire to be a dad. I didn't know my dad growing up, and like I knew that he had 7 other kids, and that he was involved in all of their life in some way, shape, or form, except for me. And just after 8 kids, you just run out of time, I guess. But like, you know, how much can you half-ass being a dad?
No, that's huge, man.
But yeah, it was that. That was what drove me the most. And then once you know, my son was actually born, and he's, you know, tattooed right here on me. Once he was actually born,
awesome.
Giving him the life that I didn't have, however I could, became like the biggest driving, motivating force for me to do good, to be good, to try more, to you know, branch out and try and elevate myself professionally, all that stuff. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome, man. What about a book? Do you have one that like you can recommend? The reason I ask people about a book, and there's a reason for it, Method to My Madness, is that not only is it like a Rolodex for me to go back and look at all, like, because I'll go back and re-listen to podcasts that I've done or whatever. It's kind of like Oprah's like book club, you know what I mean? So like I go back and I listen to all these different people from all different walks of life. There's been a lot of veterans, but there's also been people that aren't veterans. And to hear the books that they share, it's like, oh shit, I should check that one out.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a good way for me to like go and like kind of expand my knowledge, and then for the people who are listening to the podcast, you know, a way for them to go and search new books that maybe they hadn't heard of either.
So I got 2. The first one I gave you, and it's a dry read, but it's an important read if you have issues from your childhood.
So this is Your Inner Child of the Past from W. Hugh. I'm probably gonna pronounce it, Missildine. That's a doctor. Yeah,
it's an older book. It's not it's a dry read, but it's a very important read if you're struggling with that inner child. If you still hear that voice inside your head, you can tell that the pages are all weathered and worn. It's a dry read, but it's a very important read if you're trying to do some self-discovery. And then along those lines, the second one that's a much more fun read, but it's also along the lines of self-discovery. I love Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh, that Robert, you know Persig. What? Yeah, for sure. That's Phil Jackson, I think, highly promoted that book. Okay. Yeah, for sure. That's where I heard of it.
Okay.
Because I think he required all of his basketball players to read that.
Interesting. I love it. It's a father-son journey going across the country. They basically stay off of the freeway, and they're on all the old highways that the freeways were built next to. It's an amazing book. Again, it's all about discovery. All about finding yourself, losing yourself, finding yourself again, and the fact that there was like a father-son, you know, kind of trip.
Oh, totally.
Like for me, like I read that before I had a kid. I was like, oh fuck, if I could do that one day with my kid, like that would be so dope. But just the whole discovery process, and also the self-acceptance, which I think acceptance is so important. Being able to accept the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the mistakes, and not live in them, but accept them, and then actually just continue to live rather than dwelling in those mistakes.
For sure. Yeah. And accepting ourselves, you know, at the end of the day, right? Like, I think that's, for the majority, I'd say, of my life, I've always had this need, and I think most people do, of like just being accepted. Like you were saying, like when you were on that pedestal, it was like, finally somebody wants me. You know? Like I'm accepted.
I ate it up. Yeah, I love it.
And it's funny, I even told my wife, you know, that I'm, you know, I told her, I was like, you know, she's like, what do you want? Like, what's the most important thing to you? I was like, just to be accepted for who I am and what I am. You know, like all my flaws, all my insecurities, everything. Just accept me. You know what I mean? Like, because it's such a good feeling, you know, to be there. The other question I want to ask you is if you had one lesson that you learned throughout your life that maybe you had to learn the hard way, that you could share with somebody else to save them the heartache. What's that lesson that you would share with them? Whether it be a younger you or just somebody else that's coming up in the world, what's a lesson you would share with them?
I guess 2 rolled into 1. Don't ever stop trying, and don't be too hard on yourself. Because if you don't stop trying, then you're going to keep fucking up. Yep. The only way to not fuck up is to not try.
Yep.
But you also never make it if you don't try. So you got to realize if you want something, you got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and you're going to fuck up.
Totally.
So don't be too hard on yourself either. Because I beat myself for my past mistakes, and that holds me back from trying again.
Yep.
And the more we can, again, acceptance. The more we can accept ourselves, own our mistakes, own whatever no matter how good our intentions were, however bad it turned out, and not beat ourselves up for it too much. That lets us keep trying.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my buddy, and he was telling me, you know, like I was telling you, I have terrible like anxiety and like panic attacks, and it's something that I work through. You know, it's something that I've dealt with. You know, 2011, I quit everything cold turkey.
Yeah.
And so I was very like, stubborn and rigid and like, no, I will never go down that road ever again. And, I was like, I was not going to fuck around. And there was a time, that my anxiety was so bad where I was like, I couldn't manage. Like, I mean, I was trying everything I could, cold showers, meditation, stretching, yoga, like just trying everything I could to like get to a place where like mentally I was good to go. But it was getting to the point where like I couldn't even function, And so I took an anti-anxiety pill. Yeah. And I beat myself up over that. Like, beat myself up over it, dude. Like, I can't believe you failed.
Right.
And at the end of the day, so I called my buddy. He's going to be 50 pretty soon. He's older than me, and he's been around the block. And he's like, you need to stop being such an asshole to yourself, dude. He's like, at the end of the day, man, like, it is what it is, dude. Right. And I think that for me, like, the scariest thing was, like, I never wanted to be a fraud. Right. I never wanted to be, like, what I viewed other people, like, they would sell this image or this thing, and, like, in reality, they're behind closed doors. They're total pieces of shit. Right. Yeah. And for me, like, I never wanted to be that guy to say, like, hey, man, I came clean. I got off all my drugs, cold turkey, this and that. And to know that I took another pill or whatever was like, dude, I don't want to have to share that with people. Like, oh, shit, like, am I not in recovery anymore? Or am I like, oh my God, I failed. You failed, yep. And it's like, no, and that goes back to the whole thing of like, no, share your skeletons. Share the things that you go through, man, because there's other people out there that are fucking struggling, you know? And they're probably dealing with the same shit that I was dealing with, this the self-hatred and the self, like, loathing of like, dude, like, I can't believe I fucking couldn't hack it. And, it's like, I'm still fucking human at the end of the day, Exactly. And like, and I'm willing to share that story of recovery, that story of like what recovery means to me in sobriety, and trying the best to be the best that I can be, Totally,
yeah. I dig that a lot, yeah.
How do you want to be, if you were gonna die like tomorrow, how would you want to be remembered?
Just someone who worked really hard and always thought of himself last and everyone else first.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And another question I have for you is, what's the best way for people to connect with you, and what's the best way for people to help you and support you in your endeavors?
Awesome, thank you. So, people love to hit me up on Instagram and stuff. I check those messages like maybe once a month.
I got lucky, dude.
You did, dude. Yeah, you did.
It was fate, man.
It was
fate.
For sure. I'll go weeks without even checking.
Yeah.
So really the best thing is email, which you can find through our website. It's just SaveThemDogs.com.
Okay.
And people always they think it's Save the M Dogs. I'm not sure why, but it's Save Them Dogs. I got that tattooed. It says Save Them on my fingers.
I like that.
So I had to put Save Them Dog Training. So it's not Save the M Dogs, but it's Save Them Dogs at Gmail or SaveThemDogs.com.
Awesome. So can people go on there and like donate if they wanted to?
Well, so that's our training business.
Okay.
So we don't have any donation options through there because that's the for-profit side. On the non-profit side, it's the Underdog Alliance, and that actually is all through Instagram. Okay. I don't manage because I'm so busy with the hands-on of the training.
For sure.
We have someone that does all of the like PayPal donations and all that, and they're great if you just go on Instagram, Facebook also, any social media, and just type in Underdog Alliance, and they're right there, and you can find them.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much, man, for being willing to do this podcast with me, man. I loved hearing your story.
Thank
and like
you.
The parallels that we have in our lives is like it's fucking freaky.
It is, dude. We got to hang out more without the cameras. Yeah, for sure,
man. No, I totally appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. If there's anything that I could ever do for you to help you in any way, man, feel free to reach out whenever. And like I said, I'll reach out to my guy, and hopefully we can find your mom, man. That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm tired of looking for her.
Right,
yeah, man. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Later.
Thank you for listening to Getting Real with Josh Boyer. If you're loving the podcast, please leave a rating and subscribe. You can follow us on all social media platforms and YouTube at gettingreal_. You can also check us out at joshboyer.com.